Hello everyone, welcome to another Fowhammer Live. I can see we've already got quite a few people waiting. Wow, 58 waiting. Absolutely fantastic, one of the best streams we've had. You might notice I've got a slightly new setup because I don't know, is this making anyone feel uneasy when I move left and right and the camera follows me and it's almost a bit wavy, but instead of my mic being up there, or my camera being up there, instead of it like looking at me like this, I got myself one of them DJI Osmo Pocket things, which are like, yeah. How's the audio, guys? All good? I always want to check that because I don't do weekly streams. I think if I did weekly streams, then I would actually care more about getting this set up properly, but I just want to make sure it's good. Wow, we've actually done it. We've nailed it. So, thank you so much, Bearded Printer, for gifting memberships. Yeah, just before we get started, Nico is on the line. He's behind that Concepts 3D logo you see in the top corner. We're going to swap to him in a minute. This is just going to be a general chat, but I'm already over the moon by the fact that me and Nico managed to get set up in 10 minutes before this. Everything seems to be working, and we also have we also started on time, which is a first for me. I don't just mean in live streams, I mean in life, because again I champion my ADHD because it is my superpower when it's not my kryptonite. So I'm sure many people out there can relate, all sat in your little offices and your man caves and your what did my wife call hers the other day, her she den, and stuff like that. So it's good. So yeah, guys, today we've got Nico from Concepts 3D. The Athena II really has gone down a storm. People are absolutely loving the potential of this machine. I think you're going to love Nico even more than the machine. Yeah, Richard Lynch Wilson said, don't lie, you started setting up an hour ago. All right, in fairness, we started setting up yesterday at this time. But yeah, so so this is going to be a live stream. Thinking about an hour and a half, 2 hours, because otherwise it's going to be a bit much for me and Nico. It's going to be tiring. We are going to be taking questions because I don't think, like some of my previous streams, this one's going to be super divisive. But again, if anyone's out there and if anyone's being a dickhead, I'm just going to kick you. I figured out how to do that since the last stream because we did have a few of them being mean to the guest, and we won't have it. So yeah, you will be ignored. I won't acknowledge you this time. You will just be kicked, and I'm sure we can. Yeah, there we go. Ross, when you have a chance after this stream, check out resin supports for FDM printers. I've seen it. There's a really good video on that, but that's not what we're here for today. Thank you, Gary B, for the reminder. Just a quick reminder, guys, if you do want to message me directly or you want to get noticed, bear in mind that I'm talking to Nico. We're doing that. It's just going to be an off-the-cuff conversation, but I think we're going to get a lot out of it. But again, if you want to message me, put @Fowhammer in the chat or be a member, because then you come up in a different colour. As much as I'd like to say I prioritise my members, it's just that you come up in a different colour, so I notice you in the chat, that's why. So that's about it, guys. If you want to donate, we do still have a tip goal. We are halfway there. It's just an ongoing tip goal that I've had, so feel free to add a super thanks in the chat, and that goes towards me paying my bills and being able to afford this. Yeah, sorry about the static in the mic. I've had to use this wireless headset because it's a bit of a pain. You will see shortly Nico, who we're about to introduce in just a second. He's got a much more professional setup than me. Honestly, he should be the videographer, but this is the reason. He's the 3D printer designer and the professional. I'm just a guy talking to a camera. At least it's a new camera that goes from side to side, I hope. So there we go. Right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'll do a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we'll introduce Nico. Let me just make sure I press the right button. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, Nico. How are you doing? That worked.
Hey, good to be here.
Hey, thanks very much for coming on the
okay?
show. Yeah, I can hear you okay. Please let me know in the comments if you guys can't hear him okay, because I can adjust him separately, but I think he might be actually coming through a little bit clearer than me, which is really good. So, Nico, thank you so much, not only for coming on to the show and talking about Concepts 3D, about the Athena II. I can see you've got some slightly different ones there behind you, which I'll ask you about in a moment. But yeah, I really just like, well, we've talked for a while. Like, we've already had a lot of the conversations we're going to have. I'm not going to pretend to people that like some of this isn't slight showmanship. But yeah, I think as we've been talking, I've said a few times, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about would be really key and crucial information to share with the wider resin printing community. So it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm sure people will see the pleasurable person that you are to just speak to as well, and just how much passion and enthusiasm you have for the products you're making. So I suppose I'm going to shut up now. Please, can you tell us about you, your history in 3D printing, in resin printing, and what brought you to Concepts 3D and make the Athena 2? And we'll get onto the Athena 1 stuff later on, guys. All of these questions are going to get answered. But yeah, tell us about your history, mate. I'll shut up.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Ross. Appreciate being here, and thanks for everybody tuning into the live stream. This is like my second live stream. I haven't done very many, so I'm gonna wing it.
That's what we do here.
If I'll be answering questions, maybe we'll leave the questions for later on. I see some people are asking questions already, so if you could just wait, because they're gonna scroll past here pretty quickly after I finish talking. So save your questions till maybe later on, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. But we'll start off with I guess a little bit of history about myself and the company. I started doing resin 3D printing back in 2012. I was kind of, before that, I was kind of doing CNC machines for woodworking, some light aluminum machining. I built my own machines at that point. Before that, I was in school for mechatronics engineering and stuff like that. So got a lot of engineering background, and just doing CNC machines because I was passionate about building things that can make other things. And so at around 2012, I started tinkering with 3D printers. They were pretty early on, the FDM printers at that stage. And I had an idea for a resin printer. Before that, I was kind of building these LCD-based DIY projectors for like videos and movies to have a large screen at home. And I built a few of those. There was actually a website that I was following some guides from, and that involved like taking apart an LCD screen, removing the backlight, adding a Fresnel lens and some powerful light sources and other lenses to project the image onto the screen. And that got me thinking, like, I wonder if we can use an LCD screen for a resin printer. At that time, there was only like DLP resin printers and the laser-based, resin printers. I was part of an open source community on Yahoo and Yahoo Groups, which is no longer around. And people were like, oh yeah, we're building these DLP printers. There was actually a Kickstarter at the time for a DIY DLP printer, and I had this idea for the LCD. So I started experimenting. I tore apart some cheap LCD monitors that I could find, and found that they weren't really working. They weren't passing their UV light through to cure the resin. And people were telling me this was going to happen, and I was kind of aware of it, but I wanted to try it out anyways. Then I had the idea to use a medical X-ray imaging monitor, which was just black and white, a monochrome LCD. Back in 2013, I bought one on eBay because they were super expensive. They were like $2,000 each for a medical LCD monitor. They were about 20 inches. And so I bought one for about $300 or $400 on eBay, tore it apart, and built the first resin 3D printer, monochrome LCD resin 3D printer, around 2013. And I really spent a lot of time tinkering with different light sources, different, like from LED to like HID, like high intensity discharge lamps and all that kind of stuff. Just trying out different things to see what would work. I found out you can actually pass like between 395 and 405 nanometer light through these monochrome LCDs. And so I started focusing on that, going down the road of building like an LED array with like 200 LEDs, trying to find the right lenses for perfect uniformity, try to get the screen uniform. So I spent a lot of time on that, just kind of tinkering in my garage. And 2015, I finally had something working, and we decided to start up a company with a friend of mine and it's called 3D Curex at the time. We were going to focus on industrial resin 3D printers, so like large format resin 3D printers using like 20-inch up to 64-inch, 65-inch LCD screens. Um, so we started down that road. We had some investors come on board, and we spent about 5 years just in R&D, just testing out different things, different release films. At the time, FEP and PFA films were not common. So I was just testing out different Teflon films, ETFEs, PTFEs, PDMS. PDMS was like the main one they were using in most of the DLP printers, which is like a liquid, and you mix them in two parts, and you kind of pour it into your bottom of your vat, and you let it cure, and you end up with this film that's super non-stick and absorbs oxygen, so it can really release the part really well. So that's kind of, we were experimenting at that time. I was like, we need to find a way to quantify these peel forces. So I came up with a force sensor system around 2017, which was basically load cells in the build arm to measure the peeling forces. Spent years developing the algorithms for that, because we've discovered, hey, it's not only useful for testing different films, but also for understanding what's happening during the print. And so spent a few years developing that, but we never got enough funding to actually launch a product. So around 2020, when COVID hit, the company ended up shutting down. So I decided to go back to my roots. I was always big into open source and on the consumer market. So I went back and actually started with a team from Atlas 3D SS and my partner in Germany, who I found online, who is an electronics engineer, embedded systems. And we decided to come up with an electronics board that you could actually drop into existing Qi2-based printers. At that time, Qi2 had decided to encrypt their slicer files and locking out like other third-party slicers like Lychee. So we decided to start up a company along with Lychee, Mango 3D at that time. We started up the Open Resin Alliance. And so we started tinkering with coming up with a way to have a electronics board you can just drop in. It would replace the existing Qi2 board on any of the Qi2 printers. And we started down that road. Now that's actually the Athena board at that time. And discovered that, you know, it's going to be really difficult to support every single different printer that was on the market. It was going to take a lot of development, basically, because every machine was slightly different. So we would have to make a kit for every single machine. And so we decided that, you know, maybe we'll start off with our own printer first, and then maybe we can look down the road at developing these drop-in replacements. And that's where Athena was born, kind of around 2021, 2022. We started developing our own printer.
So
we launched on
is that
Kickstarter.
the one that is that? Yeah, I was going to say, is that the one that kickstarted? Because I think there's a big question around that. Like, and obviously we've had this conversation, but for the sake of everyone else, what happened with Athena? Because I'm going to jump to the end before you get there. You can tell us the story, but we've already had, like, a lot of people assumed that Athena was kind of kickstarted and then never came out. But that's not the case, as you informed me. The people who backed it did. So what was meant to happen, and what did happen? So what was that journey?
Yeah, we started on the Kickstarter with Athena, and we launched it, and it did really well. Surprisingly, we weren't able to get a lot of units out for review. We only able to get one or two. You might have seen them on Vogman's channel or on Uncle Jesse. They did kind of like a preview of Athena 1.
Yeah. I didn't see Jesse's. Vogman's was fantastic. I love Vogman's channel.
Yeah, so we started down that road, and we just learned a lot of lessons in that campaign. We never had done development. We never had done a Kickstarter before. We never had produced a printer in China before. And so it was a lot of learning. It took us longer than we had hoped. We had, I think, a September, October release or shipping date for the Kickstarter printers. We launched it in May. It ended up being like January, February of the following year, 2024, that we finally started shipping printers, because we just ended up we had about 220 Kickstarter backers. And it ended up becoming this kind of back and forth with the factory. And we finally had a perfect working sample. We were really happy with it. We said, okay, go ahead and start producing the 220 units for us. And so they started doing that. Once we received those printers, we found out there was a lot of issues with them. They changed things like the stepper motor. They changed things like the wiring. They made a lot of mistakes on the assembly after we had already, confirmed everything was fine on the previous samples. So we had to spend basically 2.5 hours on each printer, myself and Pascal, fixing these issues before we could ship them out. So every single printer we got come in, we opened them all up, we fixed them all, tested them all, and then we shipped them out to each customer. But we did end up getting them all out there. So every single customer who did back the campaign did receive their Athena printer. And along the way, we found out we made some mistakes. Things could have been better. So we decided we're not going to produce any more Athena 1 printers. There was just too many issues with the assembly, too many issues with a couple of the hardware issues. We're going to start out from scratch. We're going to take all the feedback from the community. We actually have quite a large Discord, I think over 700 members now. And and so we got, go ahead.
So I'm just saying, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Sorry, just for everyone's awareness, Nico can't actually see me, so this is very uncomfortable for him to just hear audio randomly popping out and not to be able to play off my reactions. That is the one technical hurdle we couldn't overcome. So, yeah, sorry, Nico, I'm just sort of breaking it up a bit, but yeah, just agreeing with you, mate.
Yeah. So we got them all out there, but we decided to stop producing Athena 1s. And start developing Athena 2, basically, which is going to be our main printer. Athena, it's going to be what Athena 1 should have been.
Yeah.
And so we went back to the drawing board. Athena 2 is very similar to Athena 1. I don't actually have an Athena 1 here. I should have actually put one up here, but they're very similar in style and look. We moved to a new factory. We made some improvements based on the community feedback on what they would want to see. We had some people with like LCD failures, so they needed to swap out their LCD, and that became a big tedious task. So we make sure that swapping LCDs on Athena 2 was going to be easy, improving lots, basically improving the whole printer across the board. But the core OS and the core software and the core functionality is basically the same as Athena 1. The build, the bat, the build arm, and Z-axis is the same. The light source is the same. The LCD was the same. At the time when we were launching Athena 1, it was an 8K and 12K, so we offered a 12K upgrade. Now we're at 12K and 16K.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now I have Athena 2. And there's a special one here beside me, the white one, which is basically a one-off that I had made. I was thinking about maybe a dental market or something like that for a white unit, so we had just one of them made. And there's actually another one over here that's actually all black.
That one's for Batman?
So that was going to be like, just for fun. It wasn't anything difficult to do. The white one's nice to show off, though, because you can see a lot more of the... It's a lot easier to show versus the black one, so I just have this one here now.
Yeah, no, it's quite good. So, yeah, I mean, I want to say, and thank you, like, for explaining what happened with Athena 1 and that journey, and obviously, even though you've stopped producing Athena 1, you are still supporting Athena 1, and this is one thing I encourage anyone to do, is to have a look at the Discord, and there will be a link below the video so people can do that. I think, I'm not actually sure if I put it, yeah, I have put the same description as on the review. So the second line, guys, you can have a look at the Discord and see the amount of support these guys have been giving to their printers already. But one of the reasons I was really passionate about this whole project personally is the fact that, yeah, you had a Kickstarter, and there are so many horror stories on Kickstarter. The one that, you know, and don't comment on this is for me to say, there was a company called Ultra Print a while ago, and that looked fishy to me. I could have been wrong, but I warned people about that, and they became vaporware in no time. But I think it is important for people to understand the journey that, yeah, you had a Kickstarter, it didn't lead you to your goals, which were to launch a product, to launch a printer, but the money you had and the time you had was spent resolving the issues that you found the factory caused with your printers, and making sure the people who did support you and backed you were taken care of, which is one of the reasons why I was really keen to let you communicate that. And you know, there's a lot of people that will echo that in the Discord who've got one. So there we go. So yeah, so tell us about Athena 2, because I've had it, I've played with it. Obviously, and I'll be clear with this as well, like, I have had a prototype. I'm sure you'll agree with me on that. Like, I don't have a finished product. As you've said to me, there's still work to do, but there's already been work done since I've done my testing. So what I have done is done a preview, which I hope most sensible people understand this is in a few ways the intention, but there's a lot here that we can show already. And now you've got, I mean, where are we at? Because you launch in April. So how close are we now to this prototype?
Yeah. So we've gone through about 3 iterations now of the printer, just kind of tweaking things, adjusting things. So this is actually the 2nd generation here. You have like one of the 1st generation ones, and then we're going to have one more set of samples coming in another couple of weeks. And then once those are all good, we're going to go ahead with production. We've practically already started production. So we're working with the factory to produce the first pre-order units, and then we'll continue doing that from then on. But basically, this is what Athena is going to be. It won't be the white or the black. It'll be the yellow lid with the black and the gold aluminum parts. It'll come with a basic build plate, which is basically just the standard knob and same leveling mechanisms as most of the other ones. And I will be showing some CAD models of the final printer later on. But you still there, Ross?
Yeah, still here.
Oh, I can't see you on video.
Oh, my bad. What have I done? Give me a second. I'll restart my webcam. I'm still here, guys. Sorry.
Okay. So basically, it's going to change slightly. This basic build plate. We're going to add a couple of little handles, little wings, and then maybe like a little hole so you can actually slot on a hanger underneath the build arm to let you drip, or you can just put it on the plate sideways. If you have a really short model, you can attach it at a 90-degree angle like that on that build arm.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And then the resin vat, we actually have the same kind of mechanism we had on Athena 1, where these knobs just kind of tilt outwards, and the resin vat attaches. It's got little feet, so it locates onto the top plate here.
Yeah.
Right now, this is still a prototype one, so it's got a 3D printed kind of connector on the back, a magnetic connector for the in-vat heating. So there is actually a vat heater band embedded in here underneath this, the ring for the film.
And that is as standard, right? So we're not. There isn't a non-heated vat option.
There is not a non-heated vat option. So the reason for that was we felt that one of the most important things is maintaining consistent temperatures in resin 3D printing. And I think that's a lot of people struggle with printing because maybe they're in too cold of a room. You know, resin printing really wants to be around 25, 28 degrees Celsius for optimal results. I have some resins like the Spiritex Lava Black, which is a super thick resin. It likes to be printed like around 35 degrees Celsius. So having the vat heater standard, I thought was important to make sure we can actually maintain consistent temperatures. For people that are printing in really cold rooms, we also have a chamber heater, which is this lower grill here, which will heat the chamber as well as a resin vat, and so you can maintain consistent temperatures not only in your chamber but also in the resin. So I thought that was really important to have standard.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's one of those things that I get a lot of comments, like people who are in very warm climates will often say, I don't need one, but I think, like, tell me, because the thing is, right, up until now, and I've tried to admit this on, if not in every video, in every comment, I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't got a clue. I'm not a resin printer professional. You are, and like, you actually work in this, and until now I've spoken to marketing people. In fact, no, I've spoken to marketing people. I've never spoke, other than you and a few members of your community, I haven't spoken to, and well, maybe J3D Tech, who's another great resource people should definitely check out. I've never spoken to a proper 3D printing engineer. Now, one thing that's really great is what we've managed to do as a resin printing community goes above and beyond, and this is foreshadowing for a future video, and if you've seen any of my social posts, guys, you'll know who I'm talking about. But what we've managed to do as a community to make these printers from other brands work for us versus what professional printer brands offer is you'll see why, and again, foreshadowing for future video, what we have managed to do is astounding. Like, and what we've managed to do is incredible. But at the same time, we are guessing at it. So when it comes to things like, oh, I I'm going to refer to you. I'm just going to trust that what you tell me is based on technical experience rather than guessing, and you've actually got the engineering background to back this up. But like things like, oh, I live in a hot climate. Is that okay? Because for me, like hot climate's cool. It's 30 odd degrees in the day. Sorry, I'm British, so we're speaking Celsius here. But like at night, it's going to drop to 15. And surely consistent temperature is more important than it just staying hot, right? That's something I've assumed.
Yeah.
I kind of just want to get it validated.
Yeah, I mean, keeping it consistent. Typically, what happens after you start a print is the whole reaction of resin curing is generates heat, right? So, and also the UV light source behind the LCD, it's quite powerful. Basically, you're brute forcing a lot of energy into that LCD, and only about 5% is making it through. The rest of it's
Really?
being
Oh, wow.
absorbed by the polarizers and turned into heat. So, it gets hot, and so it'll maintain itself basically once you get started, but getting that initial temperature so those first layers really stick well is really important. So preheating, making sure your resin's up to temperature. There's lots of ways you can go about it, but just making it automatic on this system. It'll start up, when you start a print, the first thing it does is homes itself to the top. We home itself to the top because we have a power loss failure resume function where if you do lose power or something crashes or whatever, you can resume your print from where it left off. And homing to the top means you're not going to be crushing that model into the plate trying to home again. And so once it homes to the top, it'll start the preheating. It'll start the resin the vat heater on. It'll turn on the chamber heater. And once that reaches temperature, the plate will come down and do like a mixing a routine basically we have, where it'll go down in and out of the resin basically at different heights, mixing the resin, and then the print will start. So that'll ensure that the plate's warm, that the resin's warm, and everything's very uniformly heated.
Right. Okay, that's really good. I know we're leaving questions to the end, but someone said, for example, Diomedes Dominguez, I hope I pronounced that right, has asked. They said they're living in a very hot environment, 34 degrees Celsius, 65% humidity, and wants to know if they should use a dehumidifier with a printer. Is that something you can comment on?
That's never something I've experienced, so I'm not sure how humidity would affect it. I know it does. Some of the Formlabs printers have humidity sensors and that kind of stuff. I could see it happening, but being that the curing and the whole process takes place submerged in resin, I'm not sure how much it would affect the actual process. Maybe more of affecting the resin by absorbing some humidity, but I don't know enough about that to really be able to comment on that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's great. So obviously you were talking about like the standard vat, the standard build plate as well. Obviously we know there are add-ons and extras. I think if we cut to one of the biggest questions people have had on this printer, or two questions, really. One is the price of the printer. It's expensive. Now I know why, you know why. I'd like to hear it in your own words, but also we'll move on from that. People have said like, why does it cost so much more for a resin vat? Just because it's got spouts and handles. And again, I know the answer, but I think it's an interesting answer as to that we should share with people. So go on then, Nico. I'm going to throw it at you. Why are you so bloody goddamn expensive?
Yeah, I mean, we're a startup. We're Canadian. Company's Canadian. I'm based in Canada. I'm based in Kelowna, BC. My partner Pascal is in Germany, and he heads up the German office. And so just even making stuff outside of China is expensive. We just can't get the prices that the other Chinese companies can get. A lot of the times, those companies are being subsidized by their government. They got grants and different funding sources that they can tap into, and also their volumes, and also they sell resin, so they can make up a lot of their money on the volume and on selling the materials afterwards. So they can take a hit on the price of the printer. For example, for the LCD, the 12K LCD alone, it costs us about $100 US. So it's seeing these printers come out for $300 or $400. It's just like we can never do that. So what we did for Athena II was try to keep the cost down, make it reasonable for people, as low as we could. While still offering a lot in terms of value and features, and also giving you the choice. So if you go to our website and check out the Athena II product page, you'll see that you can actually choose upgrades and add-ons to improve the quality of life mostly, and some upgrades for the 16K LCD and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But giving you the choice. If you don't need a chamber heater, you can just not buy it. If you don't need an air filter system, which I actually suggest that you do have an air filter system, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yep.
If you don't need a camera, if you don't need the Pro build arm or the Pro build plate, all these things are optional, so you can decide what you can afford and try to fit it into your budget. And these are all things you can buy later on, and if you find that you do want something better, you can purchase them at a later date. For the vat, the standard vat that we use right now is actually a cast mold for several printers. So the factory that we were working with makes these resin vats. They have a mold for that, and they cast them out in the thousands at a time. So we were able to get this at a really reasonable price, but so it's not our design. It's actually seen on some other printers, EPACs and that kind of stuff. Probably not anything people are very familiar with. The Pro resin vat is actually our own design, and it adds handles, as you can see, and some nice port spouts, as well as the connector is much more embedded in part of the body. It'll have the same vat band heater that goes all the way around. It's actually on this one now, but you can't even see it. There's actually a silicone gasket that kind of hides it all in there.
Yeah.
But having the handles is really nice for pouring.
Yeah.
And the pour spouts are really great for getting stuff back in the bottle. And there's also a notch on the side here that we actually have a plan for getting rid of these knobs and doing something like, where did I put that part here?
I'll vamp for a minute while you're looking for a part.
Here it is,
it's fine.
Doing something like this with the knob that kind of, a lever basically, and that'll like latch into the vat, and then you can release it, and it'll actually stay up like that, so you can pop in the vat in and out, and then lock back in again. So we're working on this as well. These are just 3D printed prototypes, but looking at making some of that for the Pro vat.
Fantastic. Like, I love the fact that, like, this is the thing, like, even though you're a couple of months, like a month or so away from launch, like, you're still looking to eke that little bit of extra. Like, we've talked about, like, we've already talked about this after I'd recorded my video, thanks a lot, like, some of those things, like for the Pro vat. So I hope it's clear to everyone, and I think it's a fair explanation as to why the prices are higher. They just are. Western company, different buying rules, regulations. You've also got Western staff to pay for, and, your quality level. But the explanation, like, people have been saying, why is it so much more expensive to get a vat with these extras? Well, it's not. It's because the vat that you've got is a functional component that is available on the market, and you've had them cast in I don't know if it's anodized or painted. I'm assuming anodized in gold. But the one that you want specifically costs more to make and design, and I think it's only when you start selling in the volumes of thousands that you can actually bring those costs, have any potential to bring those costs down. But I do like that you're adding the extras in there as well, or looking to add the extras like the latches. And as we discussed, you're also speaking with Chitu Systems about trying to get a Hoopat version in collaboration with them too.
Yeah, so I spoke to one of their reps. They actually reached out to me at one point, so I was asking them about that. In the end, though, I think we're gonna end up making our own kind of version of that Hoopat. So we're gonna see how it goes. It might end up being that the standard printer, the base printer, will have this vat, and then we'll have the Hoopat style vat for the people that bought the Pro vat. We're still kind of finalizing things. You mentioned it was in April. We're actually going to be shipping more closer to the end of May right now.
Sorry.
So we still have a couple more months to do this all out. But most of the stuff that's going to take like a long time to build, like the panels, the bodies, anything that's like sheet metal, has started production already. Other parts that we can still finalize, like the vat, because these are all being CNC machined, we still have a little bit of time to work that out, and we're just kind of figuring out exactly what we can offer, and maybe even offer more upgrades down the road to people. But yeah, the price, I mean, we did the best we could to keep it down, but it's all metal, it's very well built, and again, we need to be able to maintain a viable company so we can be here for a long time to come. For example, like on the Athena 1, we still are supporting them. We're a year into it now, and we plan on releasing a whole bunch of upgrades and add-ons for Athena 1 customers, our original backers. Like they already have a chamber heater. We plan on releasing this actually ProVat is compatible with Athena 1.
Oh,
We plan
great.
on releasing the extra drill plate.
So I was just agreeing with you again. I was saying, oh, great. I didn't realize that
Yeah,
some of these bits were backwards
they're the same.
compatible.
They're the same size basically, so it'll fit on that Athena 1. Athena 1's also going to get a camera. Athena 1's also going to get the air filter system. Athena 1, we're working on that now, is adding the 16K LCD. And that's one of the beautiful things about our platform is that we're not stuck with our main board only running one LCD like most printers can. We have a main board that can actually run multiple LCDs. The main board only outputs HDMI, and then we have a converter board that actually takes that HDMI signal and runs the LCD panel itself. So 12K, 16K, anything future down the road, 18, 24K, whatever comes out down the road, will be compatible and ready for it. Just a swap of a board and the LCD screen, just pulling out these 4 bolts, popping it back in again. So we won't be able to change the size. Some people were asking if we can make a larger one, but we're limited in the size of the frame. So basically 10-inch screens are the only ones that are going to be able to fit in here. But yeah.
I think that's an interesting topic, actually, because that's something I wanted to touch on more from the basic point of view. But from what I understand, yeah, 10 inch is not just like, even if you could get a few extra millimeters out of the area that I can see there, the distance of your light source only projects to a certain area as well, doesn't it? And then it starts to weaken off at the edges. So Athena and Athena II are aimed to be 10-inch printers. But what you touched on there, so anybody who watches this channel, and we've got 163 people here now, and bear in mind it's early morning your side of the pond, so a lot of people are going to be at work and are watching this later, but I have got so much shit because every single video I do whinges and whinges and whinges about resolution in printers. Now, I'm going to say this here. Part of this, Nico, is your fault, because you're the one I started talking to when I was like, these are getting worse in to a degree. Like maybe not worse, but that discussing with you has led me to infer that we are not progressing here. Now, when we went, so we're just talking 10-inch printers. When we went from 8K, now I love that 8K, and I know you love that
8K.
Yeah, used on the M3, used on was it the 10-inch or not the 10.3-inch, the 10-inch? Well, both of them actually.
There was two 10-inch ones. There was a 10.1 and 10.3-inch 8K.
Yeah. And they were both great, and we all loved them. And then when we moved to 12K, I know I saw a slight quality difference, at least in miniatures, in terms of smoothness and what it could render. But we also moved to COB light sources around the same time and started using Fresnel lenses, so sharpness improved too. So maybe going back to 8K, but even so, I saw less voxelization in the move to 12K. Now we've had 14K. 16K, you've just said 24K, 32K. I don't know if you said, but we've talked about in chats on Discord. Do we need this? Like, this isn't improving. And why? And you tell me. I've told people, but you tell me, why is this happening? Why are you giving us a 16K screen if you love the 8K screen?
Yeah, I wish we could stay with the 8K screen. Same with when we were developing Athena 1. Halfway through production, they decided they wanted to. They told me they were going to stop producing 8K LCD screens. So I offered to our backers, the ability, basically halfway through production, the ability to upgrade to 12K if they wanted something that was a little bit more future-proof. We're not in control of the production of the LCD screens. There's factories in China that produce them, and they decide how long they're going to be producing and how many they're going to produce. And so I think it's a big push from their main clients, like Elegoo and that kind of stuff. They push for something new every 6 to 12 months. Basically, they want something new that they can release a new printer. So the assembly lines for these LCD screens are only limited in their capacity in their machines, so they can only really produce one type of panel at a time. And so these ones get the previous generation gets discontinued and the new one gets pushed ahead. And you're right, it's not getting any better. I would say, at around 12K, we've reached kind of the limit of what resin can print. Like resin that we have these days cannot really resolve any finer details than about 20 microns or less.
Yeah.
20 microns or more kind of thing. So, so you're kind of stuck now where these factories in China are wanting to produce new LCD screens every year without a lot of benefit. I think the next higher resolution screens, like you mentioned, like 24 or 32K, are going to be larger screens. They're going to be like at least 14 to maybe even 20-inch printers.
Wow.
I couldn't imagine trying to manage a 20-inch printer. We have had one in the past, like I mentioned before, when one of the first printers I had, and it's just such a large amount of resin, hard to manage the build plate, hard to manage the vat.
Yeah.
So I find 10-inch was a sweet spot, but there are some 14-inch and 16-inch probably coming out in the next little while. I don't see 10-inch going much higher than 16K, but I really don't know. We might be surprised in the next 6 months that there might be like an 18 or 20K or something like that.
Yeah, I think
but it's
for
not
me,
getting
like,
better. What
sorry.
happens is like the more pixels you cram into an area, the more, say, wiring between each pixel, right? It's not really wiring; it's a TFT backplane.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more circuitry in between each of those pixels, and the pixels get smaller, so less light can pass through. It's similar to like cameras, the higher megapixel cameras aren't always better than the lower pixel megapixel cameras. They just can't capture as much light. So it's the same thing with LCD screens. The higher resolution you go, the less light can pass through. 8K, you're at maybe like 6-7% of the light can pass through. Now with 12K and 16K, you're down to like 4 or 3%, right? They did recently make an innovation with these LCD screens with the yellow polarizers. So the way an LCD screen works is that the light passes through a polarizer, it kind of gets rotated. The liquid crystals can rotate it again to pass through the second polarizer, and each time you're passing through a polarizer, you're losing light, using like 40-45% of the light each time you pass through a polarizer. And so these new yellow polarizers are tuned for the wavelength of light that we're working with between 385 and 405 nanometers. So it can actually pass through more light through its polarizers, specifically at that wavelength. And so they're actually a little bit better in that sense. So if you get a 16K with a yellow polarizer, which we are offering, you'll be able to get fairly decent exposure times without having to crank up your UV backlight. We're also going to be probably offering a black polarizer 16K because, again, the 12K LCDs are discontinued. So eventually we're going to have to be forced to move to 16K. But the benefit of this yellow polarizer that they just came out with is that it can also pass through 385 nanometer light, as well as the 405. And so now that opens up a lot of options. Now, Athena comes default with a 405 nanometer light source. So the yellow polarizer or the black polarizer will work for that, and all standard resins work with 405 nanometer. The 385 nanometer light source or resins are more for professional, like Loctite brand. I actually have one here.
Yeah,
these are like $100 bottles of resin.
Let me dive in there because I've got a couple of questions that have just skipped my mind as I do it. So, as we're talking about these light sources, so my primitive understanding, so a couple of things. Just going back, actually, when you said 10-inch was the sweet spot, the chat got nice and spicy. So more comments like that will make people smile and laugh. Yes, I can see many of those people's wives saying the same thing. Well done, guys. Sorry to be crude, but my primitive understanding of this yellow polarizer is because it lets more light through, you can essentially turn down the strength of the UV light source, therefore generating less heat, which can lead to the LCD lasting longer. Am I on the right track? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. That was
100%.
Fantastic. And then I forgot what the second question was. What were you about to talk about? We went on to the 12K, the 16K, and yeah. So I had a question about the resin because I've tried two printers now. One directly, and this is your stream, so I'm not going to promote other brands or talk about other brands. But I've had two identical printers, one with a 385 light source and one with a 405 light source. Hardware-wise, other than a lead screw, they're identical. The chat knows exactly who I'm talking about. And everyone's telling me 385 nanometer is better for more technical resins. Now, I cannot see it. So can you explain why people are saying it's better for professional cases, which I think you were about to do, but is it a visible difference or a physical difference? Please go on.
Yeah, so it's actually a physical difference. The industrial, the more of the industrial materials that you find that for engineering and stuff like that, they're very expensive. They're not really for hobbyists. Are tuned for DLP printers. So a lot of the professional printers you'll find on the market these days, 3D systems and that kind of stuff, have DLP projectors on them. So they actually have a lot of power behind them, a lot more power than the LCD systems do, and they're also running at 385. So the actual resins for 385 use a totally different photo initiator. The photo initiator is like the chemical in the resin that starts to, when it absorbs that wavelength of light, it'll release, particles, not particles, but it'll cause a chain reaction in that resin that causes it to polymerize. So there's different photo initiators for different materials. Some of them are really super toxic. Some of them are fairly safe. And so these professional resins tend to be a little bit on the safer side because they're working with industrial partners and that kind of stuff, and they're a lot more expensive. The cheaper resins that we have on the consumer market use a 405 photo initiator, and some of them can be smelly, some of them can be not quite as safe and that kind of stuff. So, but really that's the difference, is the actual photo initiator in the resin. Also for 385, light source can work with some 405 nanometer resins. Some of the clear resins that you'll find actually work better at 385 because there is actually less light bleed at 385 nanometers versus 405. So you'll get a little bit sharper prints, especially on clear resins, than you do on out of 405.
Yeah, that's the main thing that people were telling me was a visual difference. Is when you've got 385, because and I'm going to do like you can't see this or it's delayed on your camera, I'm doing a snake motion, but this is a wavelength, guys, that I'm doing by waving my hand back and forth, and the wavelength of 385 is narrower, so it doesn't penetrate as deep, therefore it doesn't refract as wide. So essentially, I mean, you can potentially see this. And that's going to be more of a problem, isn't it, on transparent resins, because more opaque resins, the resin itself actually blocks the light getting through in order to cure it. But with transparent resins specifically, and correct me where I'm wrong, transparent resin specifically obviously will let more UV light through because it's transparent. So that's where you're going to see the benefit. But like, to what level, in your experience, can you see this? Are we talking in microns? Like, if I was to print an XP rangefinder, and that's another claim to fame, actually, because I've always printed the Photonsters XP finder test on my printer, not knowing or not realizing at the time that you are one of the original Photonsters, part of that group. So there you go, there's another one. But if I was to print, say, that XY exposure test on 385 versus 405, do you think I could see the difference in 200 micron? Like, what am I measuring it in? Is it microns, or is it visible, clearly visible?
Yeah, I mean, it would be like, it's resolving features, maybe not so much, but more of like bloating, or if you have something that's two little pillars next to each other, they might kind of tend to merge together at the base, or that kind of thing. Kind of the deeper the feature is, the sharper, like a lower wavelength light source would make it. It wouldn't let it bleed out as much. When you mention clear resins, the light can pass through a lot more. It's actually not 100% true. There are all resins have what they call a UV blocker in it. They mix it in as well, which actually limits the penetration that the UV can go, the amount of depth that the UV can penetrate. And so the clear resins actually have quite a bit of that UV blocker as well. you can't see. It can obviously it's clear to visible light, but to UV light, it's basically like looking at a black vat of resin. Um,
Right.
so so yeah, it's mostly like the features. Like once you print a layer and you got say like a whole bunch of features on the bottom of that layer, or like the edges of that feature, and you go and attach another layer, that light could penetrate. Say you're doing 30 micron, 50 micron layers. That light could penetrate maybe up to 100 microns. So that previous layer could also receive another dose of energy, causing the outside of that to kind of get a bit more resin attached to it, right? So whereas the
Yeah.
385 kind of doesn't penetrate as deep, like you said, and so it won't cause that issue.
So the difference is still, we don't have a measurable amount really, but it's still quite small. So the difference really, as I understand it, is very much for those people with almost micron level engineering requirements.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's that sort of thing. But obviously you want to, in your way, you want to make a printer like 405, I think, is what we all use. It's in the consumer space, it's what we've all got access to. But the fact that you've got the ability to, you're not trying to sell us, there isn't a GK3, sorry, pardon me, what random letters came out of my head, I wasn't thinking of that. You're not making an Athena and an Athena Pro. You're making an Athena 2 and an Athena 2 Pro. You're making an Athena, but if somebody needs to go the Pro route for 385 because they've got a very specific and even in the engineering or 3D printing space, professional space, probably niche requirement, 385 is there as a choice for them.
Yeah, exactly. For the
Fantastic.
professionals, more like they want to use these industrial resins that have better properties, so they'll have to use a 385 light source. But we've really made it easy for our printer. Right now we have a 405 light source in all of them, but we also have a 385 light source. Um, Let me just pull this out here for 1 second. I can show you something.
So I hope we're having some fun in the chat. Whilst Nico's looking, I'm just going to introduce, there's a guy in the chat, guys, called A Wild Tom Appears. And there's a few people are asking him questions. I've mentioned him in a couple of videos now. I'm just going to call him Tom from here on out. Nico, you know him.
Yeah, I know Tom well.
I'm just going to say, guys, if he says it, if you've got a question and he gives you an answer, just trust him. Because if you ask for the explanation, Jesus Christ, he'll give you it. He will give you the explanation and then some. The knowledge level, and I need to give you a shout out, Tom, because you have been such a helpful person to me as well as Nico in educating me about these technologies. And I need to give you an amusing shout out just as a thank you for everything you have done up to this point. So and also inform everyone else that if they've got any questions, if you get answered by a guy called A Wild Tom Appeared, just trust him. Just so I think you'll second that as well, Nico, surely.
Yeah, for sure. He's a great guy.
Great guy.
Yeah, so back to the light source. This is the light source that we use in Athena. You can see the LED cob right there.
Yep.
There's a couple of power connectors, and there's even actually a thermistor connector that we actually utilize. Most printers don't utilize it, but we can actually monitor the temperature on here. And some great big heat pipes. Everybody loves heat pipes in a radiator.
Yep.
But this is just 4 screws. You take off the bottom panel of the printer. It's right there. You remove those 4 screws. You put it in the 385 light source, and now you're ready to print in 385. If you have that yellow polarizer LCD, the 385 light source will not work with the standard LCDs. They just don't pass anything lower than about 395. So you're losing out a lot there. But it's very easy to swap these things. We really thought about trying to make this as easy to upgrade or changing parts. You don't have to be super technical. We'll make guides for everybody to understand what they need to do to change parts or put in the add-ons. But I think you'll agree everything was fairly easy to install and that kind of stuff, right?
Oh yeah, completely. Like that's one of the things that I loved about it straight away. Now, just to be clear to people, this isn't your typical plastic toy. Like you haven't got vacuum formed plastics everywhere. It's all folded sheet metal, but you've still used that to your benefit. And I think this is a lot that you see, like kind of where you see some of the best movies ever made have been done because of the limitations of budget. You've obviously got the limitations because you're not making 10,000 Athena 2s overnight. Vacuum formed plastics are a cost prohibitive element. But at the same time, the way you've designed this is like looking at your screen right now, like that side panel there on the white one where you can see the fan grill, that comes off with 6 screws. The other side
Yep.
comes off with 6 screws.
Like
The back comes off with 6 screws. The bottom comes off with 6 or 8 screws. Like you literally just unscrew it and you can access that area, which now again, don't you comment here, be professional, I'll comment. When we look at printers like the Saturn IV Ultra, which is a fantastic printer, and I recommend to so many people who are cutting their teeth with resin printers because it is easy and just works. For anybody who's come across the maintenance of replacing a screen on one of those, you are looking at 2 hours minimum, and that's not including the time it takes you to convince yourself to do it. So for anybody wanting to invest in a 3D printer that actually has legs and longevity, you're going to need to replace that LCD at some point. And there are literally, I can count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws there. You pull out those 8 screws, you release a ribbon cable, and you replace the LCD. Like stuff like that is, for me at least, the difference between a product and an investment. And I know I made the Prusa example, but it's like, and this isn't for everyone, don't get me wrong. Like I've said, there are people out there who the Saturn IV or the M5 or the not the M5, they're terrible, but the M7 is maybe the best printer for them. But for those who much like Prusa fans, want to buy something that they feel is invested in, is supported by the brand, is open, and is easily maintainable, that's what it is. Couple of quick things. I know you wanted to leave questions to the end. One person asked, when can we order the 385 nanometer light source? And if somebody has made an order already and they want the 385, can they change that?
Yeah, anybody who's pre-ordered now still has the opportunity to change some things. Just shoot me an email and I'll do my best to get that sorted out. We're still testing the 385 nanometer light source, so I really want to make sure it's rock solid and everything's going to work the way it does. So it might come out a little bit after, maybe a month or two after. But we're trying to get the biggest issue for us is that we're a small team. Yeah. We need the funding, we need investment, we need the sales to be able to hire more staff. And the more people we can have on board, the more sales we make, the quicker we can produce these things. Trying to develop 10 different things at once, never ends up well. So we're just trying to focus on the key hardware parts right now, and then any future upgrades that are really easy to just bolt on or whatever, we'll make sure they're compatible, but we really want to make sure they're tested well before we can be confident in releasing them. No, I don't want a lot of people being like Athena 1 kind of turned into a bit of a beta test group. Those first 200 people were really jumping in, early adopters, and I think a lot of them understood that's what they were getting. But at the same time, they provided us a valuable resource for feedback and how we can improve and the issues that we had. And so, as a thank you to them, actually, during the campaign, everybody that backed the Athena 1 did get a discount on top of the pre-order price for Athena 2 if they wanted to upgrade. And as I said before, we're going to continue supporting Athena 1 with upgrades, 16K upgrades, air filter, camera, VAT heater, that kind of stuff. So basically, if you have an Athena 1 now and you wanted it to be Athena 2, you could actually upgrade most of the parts to match it. Obviously, you won't have the body panels, the tilted front, or the RGB on the front, or the Z covers. These are all things that we've added recently to Athena 2. Athena 1 just has an open back and a flat face. But there are going to be some options so that you're almost going to have basically an Athena 2 if you have an Athena 1 owner. And the software is really big. The software is identical. So whatever feature software-wise is on Athena 2 will also be on Athena 1. Yeah,
If
so a little bit about the lights, the LCD screen. So this is the LCD screen module. So it's actually aluminum. This doesn't actually have the screen protector on it, but it'll come as a module. Or if you feel kind of adventurous and you want to take apart the LCD screen and just replace the LCD screen without replacing the whole module, you can do that. It is just taped in with double-sided tape, and so somebody could either buy their LCD module as a module and pop that in without having to do anything, or they can spend the time taking it apart, cleaning it all up, and replacing it first. Maybe a $20 or $30 savings on that. And then also for the touchscreen, for the glass that goes over top of the screen. Most printers have a piece of glass sometimes, and then like a tape border. Some of the newer ones are coming out with full glass. We have a full glass top. These are the pieces here, and so the solid glass with a black border on it and some double-sided tape there to hold it on there. There is actually two versions. You might notice one that has holes in it, one that does not have holes in it.
What is
so
the
that's
hole
something else
for?
that I wanted to talk about.
Sorry, I was just leading you on there. Like, again, I know the answer to this. I should have mentioned it in my video, and I feel like an idiot because I didn't, because I did know about it. But tell us, Nico, what are those holes for?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to see. I'll show it on this one here. There is actually a hole right here and kind of like a bit of a channel where the air can pass through. There actually is a fitting on the printers. Every single printer has it right now, and every single printer will have it in production. This is actually an air release system. So we'll be able to pump in air through these holes in the LCD glass and in between the LCD and the vat film. So what that does is allows the vat film to come off the LCD and kind of like tent up or pillow up while you're doing the lift peel, which reduces the peel forces. What we found is around 40%. So that allows the peel to be much more gentle, allows you to use smaller support tips, less supports. I think the Haygears has the PR pulsing release module or something like that, PRM.
Something like that.
Like
no, believe me, nobody likes that printer. Don't say Haygears on this channel. Fucking hell, you're going to get me cancelled.
Yeah. It's super expensive and an external big thing. It's basically just a big aquarium pump, and I don't understand why it has to be so large and so expensive. Ours is going to be internal. Ours is going to be very quiet. It has a couple of valves in there, solenoid valves that are controlled by the printer. And so not only can we pressurize that area and cause it to kind of pillow, we can actually reverse it and pull a vacuum, which then pulls that film down tight to the LCD, so that when you lower the plate for the next layer, your film is tight to the LCD. So that's kind of like an advantage that we have over some of these other systems.
Right, okay, that's brilliant. Okay, like all of this, it absolutely blows me away. And the comments are echoing this, how much thought has been put into this printer. And this is the thing that, like, I do video reviews, and as I've said since day one, I am just going, hey, I got this printer, this is my user experience with it. Unfortunately, and with massive regret, I can't predict how well a lot of these printers are going to go in the long term, and especially with a lot of the Eastern brands, or well, all of the Eastern brands, what the longevity of these machines is. There are so many printers I've had now where I've had a great experience, and so many people have had absolute shit. But I've been banging my head against the wall for 4 years. I think about 4 years now. For features that seem incredibly obvious to me and much of the community, and just want to, hey, like, grab some of the guys behind the engineering of this and shake them and go, listen to your bloody marketing team, because the feedback they're getting actually matters. But the good thing about you is because you've been so engaged in the community and with the Discord, and you've been reaching out people like me. I know you've spoken to Vogman, various other creators. You're getting that feedback as to what we want. And yes, like I've said to so many people, this is an expensive printer because of the reasons we've explained, but the thought that's been put into it, like the modularity, the maintenance, the longevity. Like someone asked earlier, like, I know you can't predict the future, but do you expect Athena II to be upgradable in the next 5 years, just as a supposition? Like, I think that's the goal, isn't it? But we obviously, none of us know what tomorrow will bring.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing is though,
No, we had planned to make it to last as long as possible. If 3 to 5 years, 3 years at least, I think is fairly reasonable. The parts should be available still, and as long as they keep making LCD screens in the 10, and the 16K is actually like a 9.6 inch. But as long as they keep making those panels in that size, we can definitely support it. Just might need a new frame. The actual 16K is the same size as the 12K, so it's a drop-in replacement. But the printable area is a little bit smaller.
yeah,
And so, yeah, as long as we can maintain, like as long as it fit in the printer, we can run it. So we have really powerful hardware in here. We run Raspberry Pi CM5, which is a compute module, which is a little bit different than the Pi 5. It's basically a Pi 5 with all the ports and everything stripped off of it. And that's on our actual main board. Here's the main board here. And so this is a prototype. You can kind of see a bodge wire, so just ignore that. But basically, the Pi CM5 plugs in right here. Below that, there is actually M.2 SSD drive. So standard, it'll come with 32 gigabytes of storage. But if you wanted to expand it, say you had a ton of models you wanted to print, you can pop in an SSD drive and 512 gigabytes, terabytes, whatever you need is available there. Battery for maintaining the clock, some fuses. There's also a smart power system so that you can actually shut down the printer remotely. If you want to just, or you can have it set, there's actually a button you can set, have the printer shut off at the end of a print.
yeah.
We also planning on having a wake on LAN system where if you have the Ethernet cable plugged in, you can actually turn the printer on. On the back side, we have all our ports for connecting everything like that. And you see at the bottom, there's an HDMI port. So that's the port that we would plug into the video converter board so that we can run an LCD screen there.
That's
And
fantastic.
since we're on the boards, I might as well talk a little bit about the Z-column board. So this goes on behind the Z-column.
Yeah.
And there is actually a board here that all the accessories basically plug into this board. So this already has all the ports that you need. It'll come with every single printer. And things like camera LED, heater power, heater NTC, which is a temperature sensor, the load cell for the force sensor in the build arm, external fans, the end stop. We have all the valve controllers and the pump controller for the air release system on here. And so this basically is just another daughter board on the back of the printer, which allows you to really quick access to plug in all your accessories. Maybe I can turn one of these around and show it off a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've really spent some time making sure that it's really simple. You just have to plug something into a port that's clearly labeled, and you're good to go.
No, that's it. Like, I noticed that as I popped it off, like the labels on there and everything and the guides. And I think, that's a key thing. Like a lot of people have said, like, oh my God, that's a motherboard. But another thing is, like, what we tend to see in a lot of these other printers is they'll put the hardware together and the motherboard will be designed to be just enough to power that hardware, which is why we're typically very limited in regard to following software updates, which is like one company will release a printer, then another company will release a printer, but they've got a exposure rangefinder test, so then it takes you 6 to 9 months to a year for the other company to try and implement that, because the hardware is just not powerful enough to render that at the same time. Whereas you've got the ability to, well, like we showed in the video, and for anyone who's not seen the video, you can run Doom. However,
it's a Raspberry Pi. It's the latest generation. It has 4 gigabytes of RAM. It can run quite a bit of stuff. You can, if you wanted to load up one of those like console emulators or something like that, you can actually play almost any video game, but it doesn't really make sense to do it on a printer like this, but it is possible just because we do have the hardware there.
Exactly.
Like it's ridiculous how much power we have. Even just going from the Pi CM4, which is on the Athena 1, to the CM5, we've noticed like way faster loading times and that kind of stuff for the images, especially as they get into like 16K image, the file sizes get really big, and so being able to load those quickly in fractions of a second is really important.
Yeah, that's it. So people are now asking what games will run on it. Guys, go and check think of the game, go Google if it'll run on a CM5. If it will, it'll run on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think you and I spoke about it because somebody asked me in the video comments, will it run Crysis? And I did a bit of Googling, and Crysis will run on a CM5 if you connect a external GPU,
Yeah.
but you're using that header for something else, so you can't actually do that on yours. But still, it's got the potential there or something. So yeah, it's mad. But Nico, I'm sorry, like this is a gaming printer. Oh, that should have been my thumbnail. This is the gaming printer, because let's be fair, it runs video games and it's got RGB lights. It's the printer for gamers. Perfect. None of these are jokes, guys. These are just statements. So go on then. As we've been talking, Nico's shown you how easy it is to just pop the back off this printer, and there you go. You've got access to all of the rear internals.
Yeah. So the Z column board that I showed, this one's actually green. The production will be black, like the one I showed over there. At the very top, there's actually a 3D printed cover, and there's a Wi-Fi antenna under here. Previous Athena 1, the Wi-Fi antenna was actually behind the front glass bezel on the side here, and we had a lot of issues with Wi-Fi signals, basically because it's so close to the metal that there's only really a good signal out in front of the printer. Anything behind or above or anything like that was blocked. So we put the Wi-Fi antenna on top this time to get the best signal. Of course, there's Ethernet and the RJ11 port that you mentioned in your video for external time-lapse shutter control.
Yep.
And then we also have like the air filter system with the Aegis, we call it. And so it's just a drawer. And actually for the production units, something that you mentioned, Ross, having this accessible from the back without having to remove the back cover. So we've actually extended this out, made a cutout for that in the rear cover, and now you'll be able to access this drawer from the back of the printer without having to remove everything to replace the filter media. So the filter media just goes inside of this little drawer here, and you can fill it up and then put it back in again. There's a fan at the bottom. There's actually, it's hard to see, but there's actually a HEPA filter at the top here for particulate matter. And so that's the air filter system. There's actually a VOC sensors, one at the top for the intake, one at the bottom for the exhaust. VOCs are volatile organic chemicals that are released from the resin when you're printing, or when it's just even sitting there. There's been studies done now. Part of the photonsters, one of the photonsters actually did a study at his university measuring this, and wrote a whole paper about it, about the dangers of these VOCs. Some of them are pretty nasty, and so trying to limit your exposure to these chemicals is really important, and something that I think a lot of brands are taking for granted. You see some of these new resins coming out from foreign labs that are supposed to be a lot safer, but there's still a majority of these resins do release some quite harmful VLCs, to the extent that we don't really know how it's going to affect us down the road. For me personally, since I've been doing this for over a decade, I've seen firsthand the results of improper PPE. In the beginning, when I was messing around with these printers, I never really wore gloves too often. I would be touching resin, getting resin all over the place. And now I suffer from some dermatitis and stuff like that. You might have noticed on my hand. And this is a permanent thing. Like I can't get rid of this. And it's just something that I want to avoid other people from experiencing. So
I've had it myself. I'm sure many people, like, obviously we're concerned about what we're breathing in, and we've had a couple of questions around replaceable filters. So can you buy replacement filters? You can actually use your own media, and it's cheap to buy. We'll come back to that in a second. But regarding VOCs, like, we don't know what we're breathing in, but like, even me, like, I've got resin on my hands a couple of times, and I've gone and I've done my best to clean it off, and I think it's because it's not coming off properly, or some of the photo blah blah stuff that you mentioned earlier, that technical word, has stayed on my hand. I go outside, I go in the sun, and it cures, and then literally a couple of days later I'm scratching my hand, and then I'm scratching, and before I know it, I'm like 5 or 6 layers of skin deep, because it's had an impact. And I've had this happen 4 or 5 times now in the last 4 years, and I typically always wear gloves, apart from there's the odd time when, like, I'll knock something and try and catch it, and stuff. But so so we're going on now, aren't we? Like, so that's the air filter, and you just pour your own stuff in. So please tell us what you put in and what it does. Sorry, tell us what you put in and what it does. Sorry,
so we're working with Nevermore. Some people might be familiar with them. They are big on the Voron side of FDM printing. So anybody who's got a Voron might have heard of Nevermore. They make filters, open source filters, and they actually make the media for it. Pascal is actually one of a big proponent, a big part of the Voron community there. So we ended up working with them to develop a special carbon pellet and zeolite with potassium permanganate. Now, this is a kind of like a big chemical name, but what it does is the pore sizes in carbon are kind of varied, so they capture a lot of different VOCs and particulates into the carbon. But the zeolite stuff is really selective, and it's designed to work with more of the VOCs released by resins. So some of these VOCs that FDM printers don't have to deal with, that we do, it's better captured by this potassium permanganate and zeolite, and it actually gets converted to water inside the drawer there, the filter media drawer. And so these are available from Nevermore. We'll also sell them as well, or you can actually get them from a whole bunch of suppliers online. There's actually a website, things like called 4D Filtration or something like that, where they actually sell it in big bulk. So yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't use anybody else's. We'll of course offer it, but this is what the zeolite looks like. It's just on its own. There's just like a purple
it's like
medium.
fish pellets.
And they're pellets. And so what we'll be selling is a mix of this with the carbon filter, carbon activated carbon pellets as well. 50-50 mix seems to work really well. And you'll just pour it in there. The system actually has a dual VOC sensor, so we can measure the intake and exhaust levels, and it'll tell you when the media needs to be changed. So like as it sees the exhaust not being filtered as much, it'll let you know, hey, it's time to change your filter media, as well as monitoring the chamber VOC levels, so that at the end of a print, the filters come on to full speed and clear the chamber out of all these VOC chemicals, and we'll let you know on the UI, hey, it's safe to open the door, that kind of thing. So if that's really important to you, then you can just wait for that to happen, and it'll let you know and keep things monitored. As well, we have a rear panel exhaust. I think you mentioned this on the back on the video that you did. And so this will actually get moved over, because right now it is right over top of the electronics. Like you mentioned, we're going to move it over to the side. This is an exhaust port. It's got 80 millimeter fan hole spacing. We have some magnetic 3D printed connectors you can put onto here, and then run an exhaust tube out the back, out a window or something like that if you wanted to do that as well. So lots of options for making sure that you keep your area safe and free from these kind of gases and stuff like that.
Yeah. Someone's just asked an interesting question, because one thing I didn't show well enough in the video, mainly because my editor, I think, missed the folder, is you've got a phone app as well for monitoring. And as someone said, is the intention... We'll get on to more of the software in a second. Thank you so much for the donation there. Short attention span hobbies. You've got a name close to my heart. Yeah, is the intention for the app to notify you, so you'll get like a notification, say print complete, then another one to say safe to open. Like, all of these things seem quite obvious, and everything I've seen in the way you've developed your software so far, and this is without dedicated developers yet either, like everything you've done so far has been pushing for such a sensible workflow process that, again, I can't show it. Like, the only way I do videos, and people like to see physical things, so if I give them a, hey, here's the settings screen, no offense mate, that's boring to look at. I've done videos like that. I've done a great video explaining all the resin settings in Chitubox and Lychee, what you should do and blah blah. Nobody fucking watched it, because it's just two screens compared to each other. But like, the workflow, the journey is like I think, it's fair. It's not quite finished yet. There are, there's some tidying to do, as I've said. But all of it's the sense. I don't know how to describe it. And this is where you need a poet, not me. You need a poet to explain this, because I look at all of the other 3D printer brands we've got, and again, I think Prusa are making these products, but just do not get the mentality of us, the Western audience, the buyer, because all of the things that we complain about, I mean, I shouldn't complain. I've managed to grow a successful YouTube channel whinging about this shit, but like, you're going to put me out of a job because you're actually doing the sensible stuff. Like, you're coming along. Like, there's very little for me to complain about. and if I can't complain about things, my channel is dead. So, but no, like in all seriousness, we'll find a new avenue. I don't like the colour, but no, like all of your thing. You know what? I'm going to shut up. Tell us about your software. Like, start at the beginning, because what I love about it is the fact that the intention, anyway, we're not there yet, but the intention is for a beginner user to be able to come on. Hopefully, they have their own resin settings. If they don't, the printer shows them how to dial it in. And if they're an advanced user, you can not only change all of the settings that you can change in every other slicer, but so much more, and even edit, like send it console commands or get live logs or look at pressure sensing graphs. Like I don't know if you're ready to go on to that yet, but if there's more to tell us on the hardware,
I'll touch a little bit about it on the printer, then we can go over and sit down and talk about the web UI and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely do that, because I need you to explain it better than me, because I got a bit lost in the vastness of it, and I mean that in an incredible way. So yeah, go on, you do your spiel. I just wanted to break it up with me talking for a bit, because my throat's getting dry. It's my show.
So the software now is not as far along as I would like it to be, mainly because we just lack the developers. I'm a hardware engineer. Pascal's embedded systems engineer, so mostly electronics. But Pascal did develop our phone app in a few months. Maybe 2 months, just kind of tinkering in the evenings and that kind of stuff. We're still working on that to improve it. The software that runs on the printer, the Athena OS, we call it, is developed by a third party called Nano 3D Tech. They've been in the 3D printing business for several years now. I think back 2017 is when I first started talking to the owner of that company, and they are probably in about 50,000 printers right now globally that running this Nano DLP software. It's called, mostly in jewelry and dental and that kind of stuff. So this is kind of their first step into a consumer area. So the original Nano DLP software is super advanced. It can, every feature and every setting under the sun is there. But it's kind of like you open up the web UI for the standard Nano DLP, and it's just kind of like overwhelming how many different settings you can use, because it can work with DLP printers and can work with LCD printers and a whole bunch of different platforms. So we're really working hard to make that easier to use. That's kind of our biggest next step is getting the software to a place where it's easy to use. People can find it intuitive, similar to what their existing workflow is on other resin printers, and so they can just kind of turn on the printer, slice a file in Lychee or T2 Box or whatever they want, and send it to the printer and just print as normal. Or if they want to dive in and adjust every single little setting, it's also available for them. So that's kind of where we're focused on now, is really the development of the software, getting it to a place where it's easy to use. Right now we use a proprietary file format called .nano DLP, and so right now the only slicers that work with that is Lychee, our own slicer, which is called Nano Support, and the onboard slicer. Now this printer has onboard slicing, which means that if you just stick a USB stick with a STL on into the drive here, you go into the menu here, it'll open up that STL file and it'll slice the whole, it'll create all the layer images right on the printer itself. So if you were doing it from a phone or just not even a computer, you can just come up to it. You don't have to worry about logging in, getting onto a slicer and that kind of stuff. Obviously, if you need to do supports or orientation or layout, then you need a slicer. But we have lots of options for that as well. And right now we're trying to work with our software partners to add the .goo format, .goo format, which is Elegoo's open source file format, basically.
Yeah.
And so once we have that implemented, you'll be able to use any slicer that can export .goo, and the printer will take that file, still using its onboard resin profiles, because all the resin profiles are stored on the printer, because we do have some unique settings that other slicers just can't provide there. So it will use the resin settings on the printer and just use the .goo, basically the image slices, each layer image from that file, and ignore everything else, kind of thing. So the workflow should be very similar to what you're used to. But if you wanted to go in there and edit things, you can. And once you have the model and the layer images on the printer itself, going into editing the resin settings either on the web UI or either on the touchscreen or the web UI, you can actually edit those on the printer and not have to reslice again. It'll just automatically update.
Yeah.
You can actually be printing and go into the resin profile and adjust your exposure time or your lift speeds live while it's printing, and the next layer it'll take effect. So
Yeah,
all these
I
things.
found that, like, sorry to cut you off, like, this was the bit where I got stuck, because I am so, and I think anybody else who, and I've had this with a few printers now, anybody who's been printing for a while, who's in that Lychee, Chitubox, even Anycubic Photon Workshop, are all very similar approaches. Like, we had a couple of days of back and forth, didn't we, Nico, where, like, you, and this was for so I could understand it, not everyone would need this, but so I could understand your approach to it, which is different. And you're not the only printer to do that. I had that with Gigas, and I've had that now with Formlabs, that have very different software slicing approaches. But I think what I liked about yours is the fact that because it was all, it just makes more sense that it's all of that's handled by the printer. The profiles and everything are handled by the printer. All the slicer is doing is essentially deciding my layer height and where the supports go. So I prefer that separation now I've done it personally. When you're talking about the slicers on the printer, you don't mean it's not on the UI itself, is it? It's on the printer, but you actually access it via a web interface. Is that what you meant? You can't slice on its UI.
Yeah, if you don't have access to a computer or the web interface, you could just slice on the printer, opening the file, choosing your resin profile on the printer here on the touchscreen, and then slicing it right on the printer. If it's already pre-prepared, pre-supported, or whatever, you can do that. It does, obviously, you're slicing on a Raspberry Pi, it's going to be slower than slicing on a computer. Anything over maybe a gigabyte in file size, like if your STL file is like a gigabyte in size, you're going to struggle. You're going to be waiting maybe an hour for this thing to slice. But if it's, most STL files are under like 200 megabytes, you should have no problem getting it sliced in 10, 15 minutes, maybe less. There's actually an option for you to automatically start the print when it's done slicing, so that you can just basically hit go, let it start slicing, and then walk away, and the printer will just start printing when it's ready. But if you want to get into some more intricate layout or supporting or positioning them on the plate, you need to go into the web UI or into another slicer to do all that.
No, that's great. But the fact that it's there, like, it's just one of those things that it exists, and maybe you don't use it, but maybe you are, like you say, maybe you're a user who just has a tablet or just has a phone and wants to slice with their printer. Now, the way other printers have done this, because I've seen it before, is they've got an app, but you have to download like a pre-configured file from their storefront and all that crap. But whereas, and even then you're quite limited, whereas yours is, like, interface wise, nano DLP on the printer, like you say, it's slower, but it's pretty much the same interface as nano DLP on the desktop, is the same as what you get pretty much on the actual printer. So, it's a full slicer with 99% of the most commonly used features there, which again is something that, this is why I wanted to do the live stream, so we could talk about and explain all this, because it goes above and beyond what the physical hardware is in front of us. And the hardware is already impressive because it's got RGB lights and it can run Doom. So, but no, that's absolutely incredible. I think it's one of those, like, people are gonna probably need to have hands-on with it to, like, fully grasp it. And as you say, like, the software, you've still got some work to do. Like, what is your aim? What do you aim to have ready for launch? What do you aim to bring later, just so people can have the right expectation for buying into this now? Because the way I said to you, this is one of the few printers, like, you go out there now, you buy any printer from any brand, in 6 months from now or 3 years from now, you'll have the same printer. Maybe you'll have some bugs fixed. Maybe. Yours is one of maybe 2 printers where you buy it now, and in 6 months from now, and a year from now, and 5 years from now, you'll have a better printer.
Yeah.
Like,
We're going to keep working on improvements, and anything like on our Discord, we have a feature request channel where people can say, "Hey, I'd love it if I can do this with my printer," or if you could add in. And typically, like a lot of the features that we've had requested were added in on the next update. So that's one of the things, and we're going to keep improving it as it goes along. Right now, we have the exposure calibration system, but it only has like one model on there. We do plan on releasing several more, and then eventually we'll allow it so that users can upload their own models if they want to do the multi-exposure calibration. So lots of different things are coming down the road. We want to have, obviously the printer works now. It prints, it
yeah,
works.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
People
it
have been
does.
using the P1 for a long time and printing with great success. So the bare bones is there. Now it's just a matter of making it more user friendly, making it more intuitive, so that anybody who's maybe not as experienced can pick it up and start using it right away without having a lot of confusion. And we had to spend a lot of time on maybe improving the guides, making videos and that kind of stuff to kind of help people work through the process. The workflow is different. But we're trying to make it easier, trying to make it similar, like with the GOO format, to what you're used to. But right now, if you were to jump on here, you'd find that yes, this is a different workflow than probably what most people are used to. Mostly because of the web UI. Most printers don't have a web UI.
Yeah.
So being able to access that. So if you want, I can move over to the computer and I can show you some of the web UI stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe while I'm still here, though, a lot of the parts that we do upgrades for, like you mentioned before, like there's no injection molded molds or anything like that. We're doing 3D printed parts. So like the grill covers are 3D printed, things like the camera. This is the camera that we have. And so this is all 3D printed housing. It uses a Sony IMX 319, I believe, camera. And that is a 8 megapixel 4K camera. We're only recording at 1080p, but there is options if you wanted to have something a little bit more. And then a really bright light source on here to really light up the chamber when you're printing,
Yeah.
which most cameras, I think, lack. And so this is just basically 2 bolts to bolt it onto the printer. So you'll find a lot of the parts are, not a lot of the parts, a lot of the upgrades that require something. 1 second, I'll grab one more thing.
No worries. I was going to say, whilst you're looking for something else, feel free to say no comment, but I noticed they're FDM printed parts. What printer are you using to print your FDM components?
I'm using a Bamboo Labs just because we can get consistency, not only here in Canada, but also in Germany. I can share the 3MF files from Bamboo, and so I know that all the files printed in Germany are going to be exactly the same. We use Bamboo Labs filament as well, so that there's consistency across all the printers. And
No, fair enough.
it prints great. Like, these are beautiful, beautiful prints. This is the Aegis air filter system with the drawer on the back.
Yep.
And you can see everything's printed. Everything's designed for printing easily, so this prints on its face like this. So there's no minimal amount of supports and that kind of stuff. And then on the side is where the actual VOC sensor board goes on. So yeah, a lot of printed parts, but I think you'll find that they're really high quality. And if for some reason, whatever you wanted, if for some reason you needed to replace it or print a new one, you could do that yourself. Those are all his options and stuff like that. And we also offer the design files, the full design files. The whole printer is hardware is open source. So there'll be CAD models for this printer. If you wanted to modify something or make a new attachments or something, those models will be available to you. The firmware that runs on the main board is Clipper, which is open source. So you'll be able to, if you're familiar with Clipper, you'll be able to do some edits and changes to that. The only thing that's not open source is NanoDLP, which is the operating system. We were not able to get that open source, so there are some restrictions around that. But the web interface that I'm going to show you in a minute is actually fully open source. We have somebody from our community helping us develop that. If somebody who's talented in development wants to help out, they can join our team. Or if you want to just kind of tinker with the web UI and change it some way for your specific purpose, it's also available on GitHub for you to download and modify to whatever you wish, and then load it back on the printer. So yeah, we try to make it as open and as flexible as possible to attract anybody that for any need that they might have.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, it feels like this is a 3D printer for everybody, but it's also it might not be the one for everyone to buy, but it's made at least with the potential to be to be made and available for everyone, which is fantastic. I think the coolest thing you mentioned to me, separate to this, was like, because of the open source nature, like you're talking about all the upgrades and stuff like that. I am going to remind people, because there's a lot of people in the comments going, oh, I want to get this, I want to get this one. Please use my affiliate link before you do, because that's how I can afford to pay for things. And again, Nico, I'm going to mention something I mentioned yesterday. People think because I run a YouTube channel and I've got so close now to 100,000 subscribers, which was my goal, I'm rich, and people have actually accused me of shilling to make money. Nico, since you're here, we can talk about this, and it's something I want to ask you live, and not something I get from another company, but just to make me feel like I'm being validated in regard to the truth. Now, I can tell people I drive a £900 Zafira that I bought because it's got 11 months of bloody MOT on it. That's the only reason I own it. So you've sold a few more printers since the video went live on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great response from people picking up printers ever since your video went live. But I did notice that maybe 5 or 6 people only use your affiliate link. So yeah, for sure, use his affiliate link. It's going to help him out, and it's going to help us out too. So be sure to click on that link in the description if you are interested in picking this up. We are selling them right now at a pre-order price because there is a wait. Like I said, shipping does begin around the end of May. So there is a pre-order price, and once the pre-orders have sold out, we have about 250 units that we have allocated for the pre-order. Once those are sold out, the price will be going up to the full retail price, which is right now it's $12.49 US, and it'll be going up to $14.99 US for the base model with just the heated vat. And as you add on extras like the camera, the air filter, the heater, different things like that, will add on to the price of that.
Yeah. No, that's it. And and that's important. And unlike unregulated companies, like that is legit. Like the amount of companies we see online that go, oh, here's the bullshit price it is, but it's discounted by $200. Like, you guys, I trust, are being genuine, because there is, I'd imagine, like the UK, there's legislation that you can't claim a discount for a period and then never raise it. You can get in trouble for that. So I imagine you are under the same requirements as well and stuff. So now is the best time to buy.
Yeah, a lot of strict rules in the EU, and especially Germany. So we have to make sure we're doing all that stuff. And same with, like, some people are asking about privacy. Being a connected printer, are we sharing this data with our servers? Are we sharing it with anybody else? All the stuff on the printer is a local network. So at no point does a printer ever try to go on the internet to share your print files or any personal details or any printer details. It's all a local network. If you do use a mobile app, that is something that connects to our servers, and the printer will talk to our servers, but that's also something you have to opt in for. We also going to plan on collecting the user data. The force data that comes off these printers is extensive. We have analytics for everything, from temperatures to forces to fan RPMs. Somebody was asking about the fan RPM earlier. We monitor fan RPMs. We can control fan RPMs with PWM. All the fans are PWM controlled. And so we know how fast they're spinning. If there's ever a problem, we know the system will know about it. The phone app communicates with our servers. The printer can communicate if you opt in, and then you can actually basically access your printer and the camera, if you have one, from your phone anywhere in the world. But that's also something you opt in. And same with the analytics data. If you want to share your analytic data with us to help us improve the force detection systems, which is something we're going to be working on, improving the force detection to make them smarter, we'll need that data from our users printing various different resins and models, so that we can really use machine learning and AI to kind of make those algorithms a lot smarter. So that's something we're working towards as well. So as like you mentioned before, this printer is going to get smarter. It's going to get better as time goes on. As we get more user data, we'll be able to do that. And we never share anything with China or any governments or anything like that. Privacy laws are very important in Canada and Germany or in the EU. So we make sure we follow all those rules.
No worries. I'm hearing you talking, but I'm just thinking, get your bloody fingers off that LCD. But I've noticed it's got a screen protector on it.
Got the screen protector on there. I haven't actually put the glass on there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean everything about this, and that's it. Like everything about it sounds absolutely awesome, and yeah, like you say, privacy. It's not just even that it matters. Like we are under stricter privacy regulation and things like that, or at least we're under the guise of it. I don't like talking about a lot of this stuff because I don't like getting involved in the politics of companies and stuff like that. So I don't tend to put it in a lot of my videos because it's very personal to very people. But it is also, I understand it's important to share the intent of what these softwares do. So if the intent is to, hey, we are not going to capture this, we're not going to do that, your privacy is important to us, it is an important consideration for a lot of people on these printers. So it is something definitely worth bringing up and something I want to consider more. I just don't generally tend to talk about it because I'm not a political activist, nor am I politically inclined. And honestly, I spend most of my time avoiding news of politics in the media of all types because, again, ADHD brain, and I just absorb too much of it and get too involved. And so, yeah, I ignore that. But no, it's good to know that sort of thing. I think one of the things you said earlier as well, not earlier, but to me, about the open nature, like with Athena 1, somebody even built a module for like their Google Home or their Amazon Alexa to tell them when a print was complete. And having a printer where that's possible, this is what the open source community has brought us in FDM. And now, like, I know Prusa have kind of played with open source resin printing a bit, but I don't think that's really hit the mark in terms of, if anybody says this is expensive, go and look at a 6-inch SL1S. And then come back here and say this is expensive. But in all seriousness, like, and that as a printer, like, I've been offered to review it, and I've just said I'm not going to say anything good about it. Don't waste my time or yours. But yeah, like this sort of thing is really cool. Is there anything else? You had a couple of like light bars there, or are they the RGB bars? Like, I
Yeah,
know everyone
there's
wants to know about them.
yeah. These are right behind here. You can kind of see them on the other ones. You can kind of the first version we actually had them in white, so you can kind of see the white logos and the progress bar. So these are actually them now. We're 3D printing these as well, and the Athena logo with the LED PCB on the back, and same with
Yep.
the progress bar. And these are actually printed in like multi-color. So this is like a translucent PETG, and then we have like a white diffuser on the back. So utilizing bamboo to be able to do the multicolor stuff is really helpful for us to make something that looks a little bit better. It doesn't look so great on the white one because the white filament actually has a bit of a red tinge to it, so you can kind of see a red tinge to it there. But we do have an RGB LED. You can go ahead and make it whatever color you want. But when you're printing, this is the progress bar, so it'll start filling up, so you can see from across the room how far along your print is. The bottom logo colors will change depending on the print progress. Not print progress, but print status. So like if you're doing a peel and it detects a successful peel, it'll change to green. It'll go back to yellow when you're about to doing the wait before cure. So it kind of does different colors for different events. We do plan on eventually having all this completely controlled by the user, so you can set different colors for different events. Or if somebody that doesn't even like the color or having RGB on the printer, they can either turn it off or they can set custom colors or have it just one solid color the whole time. And then we also have our light up button with the logo on there, our company logo. And one nice thing about the printer, not only can it shut off on its own, but when you do hit the power button, it does a little bit of a shutdown sequence like a PC does, where the button will flash until the system finally saves everything and shuts down, and it stays off. And now it's shut down. There's an additional power button at the back to fully cut off the power. But if you had it in this kind of standby mode, this little light will blink every 10 seconds. It'll just flash to let you know that there is power, and it's kind of in a standby mode. And if we do have the Wake on LAN working, you can actually power it back up again. And same when you're powering it back up again, the light will flash to let you know it's booting up. And then the touchscreen will load. The Raspberry Pi is loading the OS. And once it's detected the Raspberry Pi is up and running, it'll go to solid. And this is actually a multicolor LED as well, so it'll go
Oh,
to red if there's an error or something like that. So just to kind of let you know what's going on.
no, it's really good. Yeah, I noticed on mine, like every time it cured, it turned purple. So like normally,
Yeah,
like I've done a lot of resin laps, and obviously, or I've tried to do a lot of resin laps by feeding the UV responsive cable into the printer. And I notice on a lot of printers, because I'm in a dark room here, when you get the UV glow coming out of the printer, whereas on here it was nice to get that status indicator on the Athena logo where it turned purple. It's like I'm curing, I've stopped. And it's like that was really
yeah,
cool. Um,
yeah,
no, that's fantastic. Did you want to give us a quick brief on some of the software side of things, like
yeah.
just a
Let me
run
jump over
through
to
of the
the computer
workflow?
and just give me 1 second.
No worries. How's everyone else doing, guys? Because we've got about 15 minutes before the planned end, and I kind of want to just give Nico a chance to give you an idea of the software, and that sort of thing, before we move on. Here he is. He's transported to a completely different room. But yeah, are you guys all right if we just Nico? Are you all right if we continue? Maybe put another half an hour on it, 15 minutes on software, and then we'll
Yeah,
finish
at
with
the
some
most.
questions.
Remember, I have a bit of issue. I wasn't able to get the web UI loaded. I'm going to try to figure that out here on live. But since I have the 3D model up and running and that doesn't work, maybe we can go into that first.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. We might skip the software then for today. Um,
We'll see if we can do it. I think we can
all
pull it
right.
off. I think there's a way we can get it to work. But let's just try this this screen share here. Can you
Hey.
guys see?
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. So this is the CAD model for Athena 2. I use Shaper 3D in case anybody's wondering. I also use SolidWorks, but I just find I can work so much quicker in Shaper 3D. It's a tablet CAD software. So this is the full CAD model. It actually has like every single screw. Like if I just go in here and do a view of the screws, there's all the screws in the printer. And so everything's kind of very clear on what's what, and aluminum parts, miscellaneous parts, 3D printed parts, that kind of stuff. So yeah, most printers will come with a cover over top of the camera if you don't have a camera. Here is the build arm that I was mentioning earlier. It's going to have a little bit of a couple of wings and a little hanger, and we'll have a hanger that'll kind of go underneath here on this printed part. It'll let you to hang the basic build plate. We've modified the knobs a little bit to add this block and bolts in the top, so you can actually swap that out easily for that lever that I mentioned to you or showed off a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Even the gaskets and stuff like that are all drawn in here. So
I think can I dive in there, because this was something there was so much I wanted to put in my video, and like it ended on the cutting room floor. Like a lot of people have said, like, oh, I'm not a fan of the twisty levers. What I don't think I put this in my video. What I love about those twisty levers is the fact that when you unscrew them, they drop to the outsides. When they
yeah,
drop to the outsides, you can't close the lid. And because you can't close the lid, I think I did mention this, because you can't close the lid, it reminds you immediately to, hey, you haven't secured your VAT in. And I know I'm not the only person, and probably not the only person live here, who has started a print without securing their VAT in place. So I love the fact that you've considered that as part of the design, like just a natural way to stop our natural stupidity.
yeah, exactly. So if you try to close the door, you'll find that you can't close it because the knobs are in the way. So yeah, dual linear rails, 15 millimeter linear rails. It's got a C5 ball screw, very accurate. Um, yeah, nice sturdy Z column. The actual top of the Z column is fixed to the top of the sheet metal, so even more rigidity. Underneath this cover basically is our load cell to measure the forces while printing. We also have a Meanwhile internal power supply. So if anybody's familiar with 3D printing and building your own, Meanwhile is a very well-known brand. So we have an internal 24 volt, 350 watt power supply. There's the main board like I showed you earlier with the Raspberry Pi, and we actually have a nice big heat sink on top of that, and then the M.2 drive for expansion. Power button, front USB ports, fans, LED driver. So this is the LED driver that we have for Athena. Very powerful, up to 180 watts of UV power output if you needed that. Typically, we run the UV on PWM at like around 50 to 60%. So if you did have a resin that required more, you can up that up quite a bit more. The the video driver that I mentioned to you before, which takes in the HDMI input and the LCD plugs into that. Rear panel stuff that we've talked about. I think you've seen stepper motor. We also have a double disc coupler here for the stepper motor, which really makes things much more accurate. There's not a lot of misalignment anyways, but this really takes up any misalignment and makes things really smooth. And a great big dual angular contact bearing for the base to really make this whole Z-axis very stable. Most printers just have your lead screw going right into the stepper motor, coupled directly to it. Yep. So any vertical forces, any like axial forces are transferred into the shaft of the motor, and then the motor bearings take up that load, which they're not really designed to do. Versus we take up that whole entire load with these big giant angular contact bearings. So all that force is transferred to the column and to the top plates. And one thing that you don't have on your printer, Ross, is the adjustable feet. So we have adjustable feet now. We'll be able to level the printer. Maybe we'll send a little bubble level you can just kind of throw on the top plate there. And
I was going to say, so remember in my video, guys, when I did my preview and I said a lot of the feedback I've given them, they've taken on board. One of them was give us adjustable feet. Now, to be fair, and this is another one where I kind of want your validation or confirmation or tell me where I'm wrong. Like, a lot of people put adjustable feet because, like, I know one brand, again, not going to try and promote other brands, but I know one brand who've put a little leveling thing in the top of their printer to make sure that a resin printer's level. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but other than keeping the resin in the middle of the vat, so long as the plate is parallel to the screen, a resin printer doesn't really need to be level that much, does it? It just needs to be stable, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've never leveled a single printer that I own, but there are use cases where if your printer is at a level and you are printing something that uses up a lot of your resin in the vat, and you don't have some autofill system, you could end up in a case where the resin kind of flows off to one side, and now your center where you're printing is not covered in resin. We have that resin level sensing with the build arm, so that at the start of a print, it'll detect the resin level and calculate if you have enough in there, and it gives you about 100 milliliters extra buffer zone kind of thing. So you know, there are some cases where you might end up using up all the resin. Again, our resin vat can hold at least one full bottle. I think it holds 1.2 liters of resin, so just a little bit over a whole bottle. And so if you end up having a model that's going to end up using all that resin, there could be a case where if your printer's not perfectly level, during the end of the print, you might end up with a situation where there's no resin in the center where you're printing.
Yeah, exactly. So other than that, and I suppose the other extreme is so unlevel that resin is flowing over the side of the vat, which isn't really going to happen here. Like, so long as it's parallel, it's not a big thing. But yeah, adjustable feet was another thing. Another bit of feedback. I mean, you know, like I'm going to shout out. I'm going to toot my own horn because I gave you some good feedback. I think one of the ones was, can we have a door in the back, which you were just showing, and the other one was can it run Doom? Which we obviously know it can. So yeah.
Yeah. Somebody was asking if they're the fan size. These are just 80 millimeter fans for the side for the radiator. There's an 80 millimeter fan here, and there's one 80 millimeter fan at the back. They both blow outwards, and then on the bottom we actually have the intake grill, which is right underneath the electronics. So the fresh air comes in, goes through over all the electronics, and then out the back. And then for the LCD and the UV light source, it gets pulled in through there, goes in through a grill, and goes past. We actually have a light box here that contains the UV light, and there's some vents on the side here where the air gets pulled in, and it goes out the side through the radiator and out the side of the printer.
I think that's another thing as well. Like somebody asked in the and you answered this. Like, I love the fact that like you've also even been engaged with the community on the preview video, and I expect you'll be doing the same with Vogman and the J3D Tech if they get one, or anybody else who gets one of these. Like the engagement with the community. But one of the questions I saw which you answered, so please answer here, was if you know someone, and I think somewhat sarcastically put, what's the point of having a sealed chamber if you're then sucking air in and pushing the thing out the back? That's just going to push the VOCs into the air. But the two chambers are actually quite well separated. Yeah
Yeah, we don't have a lot of holes between the top and bottom chambers, so all the electronics and stuff like that are kind of separated from all the VOCs. So anything that's happening down below will not interact with anything above. Somebody was asking about a filter. We actually had plans for a filter. We haven't got there yet, but since there's only one intake, we can kind of filter that area a little bit more. There's a lot of stuff to be aware of when that kind of a lot of testing involved to making sure we're still getting enough airflow through the filters and that we're creating like a more of a positive pressure on the inside so that you're not sucking in
Yeah.
dirty air through the different gaps and stuff like that. So we haven't got there yet. This may be something an upgrade or a mod that somebody could do to their printer if that was something important, like say they were printing in a very dusty environment. But I think for the majority of people, they're printing in a very clean room. They're not exposing it to a lot of dust or anything like that. So it's not as big of a deal for that.
Yeah.
Somebody else was asking also about like where does the air come in if you're exhausting out the back port? Where is the air coming in? We don't have a perfect seal around the door. There is a bit of a gap, so kind of between these seals around the door, there will be a slight air gap. We're not trying to move a ton of air. We're not like moving 100 CFM through this printer. The fan exhaust port is an 80 millimeter fan. Cut out the hole spacing, so it's basically bolt on an 80 millimeter fan, and that airflow from that fan through a tube out the back would be enough to keep some fresh air coming in through those gaps and out the back. It's not ideal. I mean, it could be a little bit better improved, and maybe we can do something with these to add some grills or something like that on here.
Yeah.
But while the printer is running, we are planning on creating a negative pressure environment in here with the EGCR filter if you have that, so that any VOCs kind of stay in there and only go through that filter while it's running, kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. We've had some very important questions in the chat, and I kind of think this is a good time to start winding towards the end of the video. I'd say we've got about 20 minutes left, but the first one that's really important is, can you change the fans for RGB fans? I'm sure the answer is yes, because they are just standard 80mm fans. But the other one was, I've lost it here. Hope you can get. Oh yeah. What about having a hole inside for resin laps? But, and again, this isn't something I touched on a lot. The whole point of your RJ11 is to be a time lapse function. So that RJ11 socket on the back, as I've come to understand, it's fairly standard that most SLR cameras will have an RJ11 shutter feed function, and you can get quite a few common RJ11 to camera input, normally a 3.5mm or whatever the smaller version of the jack is.
3.5mm.
Yeah, and
so
you just plug it
planning
into
on making different camera cables for this. So there's not really any off-the-shelf cables that are available.
Okay.
But one end will basically be this RJ11 port, and then the other end will be the 3.5mm or whatever jack your camera remote shutter will take, and we'll try to be compatible with all the professional cameras and that kind of stuff. So you can run a time-lapse camera, since it's extra pins here. So not only can you do remote shutter, but this will also provide either 3.3 or 5 volt to the camera.
Okay.
So you can actually power your camera without having to run down your battery or have an external power supply for it. So it'll run the camera, power the camera, control the shutter, and then you can do some really cool time-lapse videos with that. You can control when the shutter happens, like at what point in the printing process, whether it's during exposure or during the top of the peel. So different places you can actually trigger that camera shutter, and how often you can trigger it. So if you want to do it every third layer, so you don't end up with like a 3,000 layer file that ends up being 10 minutes long or something like that, you can actually limit that. And so that's one way to create a time-lapse video, but also with the camera, which is not pictured here, but the other model, this is the base model. The other model I have for the camera, you can also do time-lapse automatically. Every single printer that has a camera will record a time-lapse video while it's printing, and at the end it'll be available for you. You can watch it, you can download it, you can share it, and so you'll have kind of two angles if you had both hooked up of the printing process.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and like I've got some like that's one of the things at the moment I couldn't get it working, but we've got sample footage of the time lapse function working. My favourite part of it, and again, simple old me, is the fact that you've been smart enough to go, hey, this prints taller than it does wide. Let's turn the camera sideways so it prints in. I think I said portrait landscape orientation, but I meant portrait. So you can actually fit like pretty much the full height of the build plate in there while still capturing the width, because so many other solutions have done it the other way, where you get a wide shot of what's coming out of the vat, but then you get like a third of the print at a time, which is pretty weak. So simple stuff like that, I'm easily pleased. So that sort of thing. Somebody or a few people have asked, like, is this 3D model file? Is this CAD file? Are you intending to make this public, or is this something you kind of want?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So the whole CAD model will be public. You'll be able to download it from our GitHub, and make some accessories, add-ons, whatever you want to, tweak on there. So yeah, we'll make that available. Design files for the hardware, I believe, are also open source, and things like firmware for Clipper, firmware that runs anything else. It's all going to be available for download for people that want to dig into it a little bit more.
That's absolutely fantastic. Like all of this stuff, it's so open. And this is the thing, like I have to make 10-20 minute videos. It's so hard to explain all of this in that. Especially when you have a machine that is so miles beyond what we've seen before. Like it's difficult to relate to, because I've got to be quite iterative in my video content, because it's like, hey, what we've seen before is this, and this. But what you've got here, and there's only a couple of printers that have been like this for me, that is so much more that I actually want to make a 2-hour-long video, but the way I do my process and filming and stuff like that, it's just not right for my channel, and that sort of thing. But showing this level of detail is something that we really need for printers, and especially for a printer of this magnitude, I think is the right way to describe it. As we come towards the end, what do you think? Do you want to have a quick play, see if you can have a go at...
I want to make sure we answer some questions. I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions, so
Okay.
we can try doing the web UI stuff quickly and see if that works, or we can just jump into the questions and maybe we can do web UI at a different time. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll quite happily have you on again. Like, having somebody like you on here means that I finally have a channel where somebody who understands resin printing is speaking to the audience. So I'll take that over over any of my videos any day. I'm sure many people will agree. So we've still got about 170 people watching. Maybe not all live, but if you guys have any questions, please fire them now. Put at Fohammer. I think like we've kind of captured a lot of this stuff going throughout, which is really good. But if someone's got any questions, feel free to put. I'll look at it. If you're not a member, put at Fohammer, and we'll go from there. So let me have a look. Is there any hope? So sorry, Gravball. Ooh, crap! That just disappeared. Gravball. Mandig. Somebody says. Message retracted, okay? But I can still see it here. Is there any hope for the vacuum pump comes so it can be added before shipping?
I'm assuming that means the air pump system that we're going to have, which is a vacuum and air pressure system.
Yeah, when's that coming? So if people want it, like if people want to pre-order now, what's the likelihood we're going to have that by
Yeah, we don't have it up for pre-order. It's not ready yet. I really want to make sure we test that out. The hardware is there. The ports for the pump and the valves and the port for the air to come through are all there. But it's probably going to be something, an upgrade feature that you'll have to purchase separately down the road.
Fair enough. One person says, "Where is my C1C4 cookie, Nico?" No idea what that means, but I'm assuming you do.
That's kind of an inside joke that one of the community members said he wanted a cookie.
Fair enough.
And I said, my wife makes cookies. I said I'm sending one, but I never did send him one. Sending food across the border, I mean, I don't know if it would go over very well.
No, probably not. Right, okay, we're about to answer one of the people who's amused me quite a lot in the chat today is Short Attention Span Hobbies. We're going to disappoint him with the answer to this one, and it's the same for the black printer behind you. Is asking how does he order the white one, or how do they order the white one? Sorry if I got the wrong pronouns, but yeah. So how do they order the white one?
Yeah, there's no white ones. There's no full black ones. Honestly, you don't want a white one. This is going to be a mess after a couple of resin spills, and it's going to look ugly. But yeah, we're just not making any other. We're making the black and gold one only, and I mean, maybe we'll offer some custom version down the road. But right now, for production, we just need to stick with. It gets expensive when you're doing one-offs, right? So just kind of sticking with the traditional design. But you know, this is just a kind of a curved piece of acrylic. If you wanted to change that, there are ways to maybe to look at that. But yeah, we're not planning on doing any extra colors.
That's fine. I'll just respond with, look, you're all hobbyists. Like, some of these components are 3D printed. I mean, would any of the 3D printable elements be made available? Could people...
Yeah, all the CAD models for the 3D printer, we've actually have for Athena 1 printables channel, or printables user, I guess, with multiple models for Athena 1, for like a build plate hanger, for a resin vat cover, for like a one-armed opening method, so you can kind of just hook your elbow around it and lift it up, so you don't actually have to touch the handle with your gloved hand. Somebody else made like a thing for the side to attach different things on there. So yeah, we'll definitely have a printables and maybe a Maker World group or whatever, where we can share the models that, for sure, the models that we have already for like the grills and different things. And if anybody wants to contribute to some upgrade part that they designed, we'll also make those available.
Yeah. No, that's really great to hear. One that I can quickly answer is from Redline, who's asked, will there be a quick change FEP system? Unless you want to add to this, Nico. You're in discussions with Chitu Systems regarding the hoop app, but you're also looking at the idea of making a similar system yourself. So, but that's a not for now, to be considered later down the road, but you are looking at it.
I mean, I wish we could have all these things ready for launch, but like I said, we're a small team, limited budget, limited time, so we're doing the best we can to make it happen. But that's the beauty of this kind of platform, is that the hardware's there, and the other stuff will come kind of down the road. So like you said earlier, the printer's just going to get better and better.
Yeah. There's a good few here still from Kick Nick, Shane, Hot Tuner. So Kick and Raincoat Bear first says, how will the fulfillment from Canada and Germany work? So what's going off there? That's a good question, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you go onto the pre-order page right now, you'll see that when you order a printer, during checkout, there's actually an option for shipping. There's a standard shipping price, and there's a express shipping price. The express shipping price actually lets us ship the printer from the factory to our offices, either in Canada and Germany, depending on what's closest to you, via air shipping. So it can come immediately to us, to our offices. We will unbox every single printer. We're going to add on whatever accessories you add on, because we're only going to get the base model from our factory, and then we'll be putting on the camera, air filter, whatever else you ordered onto your machine. We'll be doing testing. We'll be doing calibration. So every single printer will be calibrated to the UV output, so that all the UV outputs are identical. So right now, you find most printers have quite a variance in their UV output between the same machine, one machine to the other. We're going to ensure that every machine comes out from the factory at the same UV output level, so that resin profiles for one machine will work on any other Athena 2 printer. So we'll do that calibration, we'll do QA and testing, and then it'll be shipped from either Germany or Canada to wherever you are, depending on which place is closest.
No, and that's an important point. I'm glad you mentioned like the UV output, because it's something that I wanted to cover in a video, but I don't have the equipment here to test it. But I know people in large 3D print farms. I obviously went to My Mini Factory and stuff like that, and places on the channel. And it's one of the things that I've been told by so many people who've got so many printers is the consistency between printers, especially if they order them at different times. The consistency between 2 or 3 or 4 of the same printer varies wildly, which is why I've never really been one of these channels who's like, I'm going to give you my print settings and they're the best. it's really key to dial it in. But with you doing that effort, that's what's going to lead us to have the success with, hey, so long as the brands don't change their resin properties, which, let's be fair, also happens, then the profiles that work on one Athena 2 machine should also work on another Athena 2 and another one. Exactly. So that's really key. Moving on,
And
we're
just
getting...
to touch base quickly before we jump off on
Yeah.
the shipping part, some people are asking, like, there are several countries we can't ship to, like Australia, New Zealand, any of the UAE countries and that kind of stuff. We're not shipping there yet. We just don't have the logistics and distribution set up yet. But that is something we're working on. We're looking to bring on some distributors in all the different countries. So hopefully by middle of this year, later this year, we'll have distributors in various countries you can order the printer from that will ship direct to you. If you do want to order something and it's not available to ship to you, there are options like a forwarding service where you can order it to a US address, a Canadian address, or an address in Germany, and they will forward it on to you. But that would be something you would have to arrange with them directly, so that it's obviously going to be an extra cost for that. But we just don't have the logistics set up for shipping outside of the EU, UK, Canada, North America countries at this time.
No, thank you, Nico. That's really great to get clarity on. One of the ones, and this user actually, their first ever super comment, which means they paid me to ask you. So thanks. I'm getting some cash out of this. Is from Kicknick RV98, has asked, is it possible that future smart features may conflict with Nano DLP's capabilities, or are there any plans to fork Nano DLP or an alternative operating system?
Yeah, no, NLDLP is very flexible in that way. So adding any of these extra smart features or improving them are not going to have any effect on the OS and the way it works. The actual main developer of NLDLP is the one who adds in all these extra features for us. So yeah, it should be no problems down the road. As well, though, we are looking at options for. I know some people are really big on open source. And they want to have a fully open source printer. So there is actually a team out there. They're the Prometheus team. I think they've changed their name now. I forgot what it's called, the Open Resin Alliance or something like that. And they are developing a new OS that'll run on the Pi and whole new touchscreen interface, web UI. I think it's actually based on Clipper, the Clipper web interface. And so that'll be a fully open source UI, basically OS, and you can, we're going to make it work with them to be able to load it onto Athena printers if that's something that you want to do. The biggest issue right now we have with another software is they don't have any of the smart features, the force sensor stuff, the detection algorithms, all that kind of stuff is not available yet. So it's going to take a little bit of time for us to work with them to add in all these features to their system.
No, thanks again, Nico. I'm just going to jump down, then go back up because someone else did a super thanks and paid me, so I need to give them a shout out. From Till McAllister, who just said, you guys rock. Can't wait to get one. Nico, thanks for all the useful info. And Mr. Hammer, that's actually my dad. But anyway, thanks for the content. No worries, Tim. Happy to be here. I'm going to jump back up. Shane says, what CFM should I use with the external vent? I don't know what that means.
So the fans on the printer right now are like up to like 4,500 RPM, but they're all temperature controlled. So like if the printer is just idling, which is like right now, none of the fans are turning. It's completely silent. As things heat up, I think it starts to kick on around 37 degrees Celsius for the UV light source. That UV fan will come on, and if the processor gets above 50 degrees Celsius or something, the back fan will kick on. And they can get quite loud when they're running at full speed, but I've never heard them running at full speed unless, like, if you do an update or something like that, the fans will just kick on full speed while it's like flashing the firmware. But other than that, it's very quiet. For the exhaust fan, it hasn't been really tested. I think basically any normal 80 millimeter computer fan will work just fine. Like I said, it's a fairly contained system, and there's not a lot of room for it to leak out. So just a slight amount of airflow should be enough to pull it out and exhaust out the window or something like that.
No, that's good. One from Hot Tuner says, can we get an upgrade progress bar or an upgraded progress bar, I think. Maybe an LCD screen so we can have custom progress animations. I saw a chat earlier. People were asking, can we get like a Minecraft loading screen or something like that? Like, I know for
Yeah.
me, I would absolutely love, like, all I care about on a printer, and maybe you can answer this follow-up question, is all I want to know is how long left on the print. I want to look at a printer from across the room and I want it to have a countdown saying 1 hour 48 minutes. And the follow-up question for that from me is, why can't resin printers ever get the prediction right? Like, maybe
Yeah,
that's
the
too big an
estimated time.
answer.
Yeah. So for the LCD progress bar, I mean, we could probably modify the touchscreen to have some cool animation while it's printing. Maybe we'll look into that. For a dedicated LCD, there's no way to add any more screens. We're already running 2 screens off of the Raspberry Pi, and that's basically the limit for that. There might be some sort of OLED, serial communication type system that you could probably hook up, but we have no plans for that at this time. Just the standard LED progress bar, and maybe we can look into something for the touchscreen UI. And so for what was your question again?
So my question is, why can printers never get the remaining
Oh, the
progress
estimated time.
estimation right? I know with
Yeah,
yours it's different because you've got dynamic wait times. So
exactly.
yeah,
For us, there's so many dynamic variables that will that will stop the lift at a certain height, or and then go back down to increase the speed or to make the printer faster. So there's so many dynamic variables. It's really hard to do. What this printer does will kind of give you an estimate for the worst case scenario at full lift heights and standard speeds. But once you run a print on this printer once, the next time it'll know what the previous print took, how long it took, and it'll use that value for the estimated times. But yeah, I think whenever you slice something in Lychee, it's going to give you one number. Whenever you slice something in the first time on the printer, it's going to give you a wrong number. So it's just really tough for it to narrow it down to be more accurate.
yeah, no worries. It's just, it surprises me. Like, you can do the math. It's like this many layers, this much height, this much
Yeah,
time.
other printers should be able to do it. I don't understand why they're
Thank you.
they're off so much, I think. So
Yeah, it's math. It's basic math, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
at least it's like GCSE level math. But anyway, you probably don't know what GCSEs are. They're basically in the UK. They're your end of school tests before you go to college. Kicknick has answered again. I'm going to jump down because once again he's paid me. Is a tilting bed for reduced peeling forces something you're looking into for future product generations? And we've talked about this, Nico. So
Yeah.
I think people would be interested in your view.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked that question. I think they've seen how popular it is on the Elegoo printers. So the thing with the tilting vat is a few issues. First of all, the big gap around the LCD. If anybody ever has a resin spill, it's going to get inside the printer. It's going to make a huge mess. The next thing is changing that LCD. If anybody's ever changed their Elegoo Saturn IV Ultra LCD, they know it's going to take you hours to do, and it's very difficult. Basically, taking apart the whole thing. More mechanical systems to fail. You got another stepper motor, you got all those linkages. The LCD has to return back to the same spot every time, or else your print's going to fail. So there's a lot more points of failure on a system like that. The peel force reduction on those printers is not that great from tilting because you're still kind of peeling away at an angle. And so we decided to go a different way with that. We're doing the air release system where it can pump the air in between the vat film and the LCD, which will help the film pillow up kind of thing and kind of gently peel off of that. We find that was a lot better solution. It's gonna work probably more effectively at reducing those peel forces than the tilting bed would. So yeah, that's kind of the main reasons why we're not doing a tilted bed. So there aren't any plans to add tilting bed to this printer in the future.
No, that's a good explanation, and thank you. It's nice just to be able to speak to somebody and get clear information from a brand as to why these decisions have been made, as opposed to, as I've said before, we speak to so many marketing people who are like, because it's better. Yeah. Data Drain has asked, they've said they're late to the stream. Did we get an answer on how much the upgrade kit will be for owners of the original Athena? So, as we explained earlier, it's not going to be so much as a kit as opposed to individual elements that can be upgraded. But we haven't got there yet, have we? The focus now is on the Athena II up till launch, and then it'll be around that point you offer the upgrades. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. Right now, when you're going on the website, you'll only find Athena 2 and then the upgrades for that printer to add on at the time of purchase. We don't have a store yet set up for all the other accessories, but I do actually have a list of all the accessories we're planning on, all the consumables, um, all the accessories that they're going to cost, and I just don't have it open right now, but maybe I could share that on our Discord or something like that. We try to keep the prices reasonable. Like if you buy something on the pre-order, like one of the upgrades, like the Pro Build Arm or the Pro Resin VAT or the camera, it's going to be cheaper for you to buy that with the printer, and we'll pre-install it for you. For example, if you want the new VAT instead of the other basic VAT, what will happen is when we get the printer ready for you, we'll remove the standard VAT out of there and put in the Pro VAT. So you're only going to get one of those parts. If you get the 16K LCD over the 12K LCD, you're only going to get the 16K LCD. You're not going to get both. So that allows us to save a little bit of money for those upgrades, to pass it along to you and install it for you, or install it for you. So when you get it, it's ready to go. When you buy those parts, like say you wanted to buy the 16K down the road, it's going to cost you more money. But then you'll have both. You'll have both the 12K and the 16K. And you'll have to install it yourself. So buying it now with the pre-order prices is the best you're going to get it, but you can always purchase it down the road. We're trying to keep everything reasonable. We're not pricing things, way out of line with some of the other products like the LCD replacements, the VAT replacements, any film. So you can use any film you want. We come with ACF on ours, but you can use the HDF or the new stuff or whatever you want to use. There's no proprietary materials there. So yeah, we're going to keep it as reasonable as possible, but it's still going to be probably more expensive than some of the cheaper ones, especially like the plastic ones that are molded or like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no worries. Right, guys, I'm going to put like a last 5 questions. So the last question was the last comment I see is hot tuna with I would buy those animations for like $2 or $3. So I think the idea is people want you to release like animation packs and then offer them as like downloadable content or something.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's a good idea.
the
Like a
next
screensaver somebody mentioned, right?
yeah, that's it. Right, the next
Yeah.
5 people to put at Fohammer on a question will get them answered, but there are a few before I get it. So after Hot Tuna said he'd buy one of those animation things, the next 5 people will get their questions answered. But anybody who's got a question that doesn't get answered here, please, there's a link down in the description. Join the Discord, go over to the Discord. They are so open and clear in the Discord. Nico spends more time in that Discord than developing the damn printer, Nico. But yeah, you'll get your questions answered there. But I need to sleep tonight. It's already 9:30, and I'm not sleeping well at the moment. So there we go. Okay, fine. Last 5 questions and those who pay me. But yeah, if I get to the end of the questions, that's it. So okay, let me jump in. And check these. Please tell me it's got home integration, home assistant integrations. It hasn't, but somebody developed that earlier, as we said. You've already talked about expanded shipping locations. Alex from Germany. When I order one in Germany, will you ship it to your, he said store in Germany, but warehouse in Germany or workshop? I'm asking because of shipment cost and customs tax. So yeah, that's the understanding, is you'll ship it from China to Germany, and then the shipping will be from Germany to Alexander's house.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Directed from Germany to anybody in the EU or UK.
Yep. So unfortunately, that means those of us in the EU will get slightly more tariffs, but there we go. What I really want to know is, all said and done, are there any games that Nico is playing right now? Oh, and I also asked you, I forgot to ask earlier, AG Miniatures asked, what's your favourite biscuit? Do you have one?
I don't really. I mean, my wife makes a really good sugar cookie, so I think that's probably one of my favorite ones.
There we go. You can't have
like a
homemade.
strawberry lemonade sugar cookie that she makes. It's so good.
That sounds nice. In the UK, we have such a breadth of available biscuits on the shelf. For me, it's a hobnob, but I think most people it's a hobnob. And that probably sounds
For video
rude.
games, right now I'm actually playing with my son. It Takes Two.
Oh,
I don't
brilliant!
know if
Oh,
anybody's
wow,
familiar with that game.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see if I can get my son into that. Right, sorry, my scroll bar has stopped working. I need to start saving for this now. Does this make me MC Hammer for the day? I guess so. Kicknick did ask about the tilting bed, so we're jumping down. sorry, bear with me. I'm just going to mumble as I read through these questions. Saturn ACT in the US. Bring 1 miles 1. Maybe try turn to the whole screen. Still going on about these animations. Can I get some activated charcoal on that vape? Form 1 had tilt and 99% of printers that followed didn't. So yeah, that should tell us something. Look, I think tilting that works, and for the home hobbyist who just wants to chuck something through it, it's fine. Like, I don't hate mine, but this isn't the way for accurate printing. Oh, what have I pressed? That's the wrong thing. Doom Guy, feedback loops are better. Oh, a while Tom up here did mention the speed thing isn't basic math because the printers have an acceleration and deceleration values that Lychee often doesn't get the info about, so it's not as simple as
That's
60
true.
millimeters a second per second. That is why you listen to Tom, guys. I did say this earlier in the chat. Let's have a look. Hot Tuner, so a few more. 2 more questions. Wirehead said, what would be the chances of offloading the onboard display to a larger screen or monitor, and what is the included onboard storage?
Assuming they're talking about the touchscreen?
Yeah.
The touchscreen is actually a DSI screen, which is a single cable connecting to the Raspberry Pi, which, something that's maybe more technical people might understand. So it's not an HDMI touchscreen. So you can't actually plug this into anything else. For the main screen, I don't know why you'd want to offload the display from the print screen to something else. But I mean, technically, you could plug in any monitor into the HDMI port on the main board, and it would show it on that monitor. So it does use I think it's called EDID to detect the resolution and settings for that monitor automatically on the printer in the Pi. So it can just run on the whatever resolution you plug in of that monitor.
So
and for the onboard storage, I mentioned it earlier, we have 32 gigabytes that come standard on board the Pi, the eMMC is called. And then we also have expandable storage, M.2 SSD and VME. So you can expand it up to whatever file size, whatever storage size are available. I think there's like 2 terabytes or more right now. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, you can do that. We'll also sell some like 256, 512 SSD drives to install there if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Just don't buy them from AliExpress and then chuck them in, please. But yeah, and again, all that stuff as I explained in my video, is just 4 screws or 6 screws, and the side panel comes off. You've got access to that board to plug that in, so that's good. And the last one I'm taking is Kicknick98 says, Fohammer, could you, meaning us maybe, briefly talk about the Force Sensors hardware and software? Is it based on any open source projects or built from scratch? So
yeah,
I'm going to have a lie down while you explain it.
Yeah. Force Sensor system is a load cell in the build arm and a analog to digital converter in the back, which turns it into a signal that the printer can read. So any forces you apply onto the build arm, negative or positive, will be shown on the touchscreen, and the system will know exactly what forces are applied. It's something that I actually developed back in like 2016, 2017. As far as I know, I'm the first one that had force sensor systems, force sensor detection on a resin printer. And so it's nothing from a different project. It's our own project. There is an open source GitHub for it, but the caveat being the algorithms that we use for the detection systems to determine when the peel happened, or how long to wait for dynamic wait, how long to detect like failures, to detect a crash detection, to detect the resin level. All those algorithms are proprietary algorithms. We don't really want to give it to mostly China for them to basically steal all our IP, all our hard work. So those algorithms are embedded in the printer. They're hidden. They're not available. So they're not open source. But the force sensor system as a whole, where you can connect a load cell up to nano DLP and measure the forces and visualize the forces, all that's open source. And so it's only the detection system that actually read those forces and do something with it, take an action based on those forces, where it is that is proprietary.
That's
maybe
brilliant.
we'll be licensing it down the road or something like that, right?
Yeah. That's exactly, and that's really good, and I understand that. Like, it's one of those things where people are like, "Oh, we want everything open source," and as much as we want everything open source, it when you do put so much effort into something so unique like that, I also understand how it can destroy businesses as well. Because when you go completely open source, somebody else will come along, make the exact same thing cheaper, and then you end up, doing it after you've put all the work in. So no, completely understand that, and I think
Yeah.
it's your openness. This is kind of where I want to close, and I always wanted to close this way. Is like I try to not be biased. I try to be very objective in my reviews. My views on this channel are very much, look, I like certain printers, I don't like other printers, and that's my view. But I want my viewers to be informed by my videos and make the choice that's right for them. And I can't help but feel maybe not biased towards this printer. I'm very objective with it, but for what you have done, you, Pascal, the team, have done at Concepts 3D, and the way you're presenting this, and the way you want to deliver this, the way you're communicating and being so clear and open with us, I can't help, personally, but want you to succeed so much more than so many other brands because of how how you are, and we're
Yeah,
makers,
we're
we're
very honest. We're
creators.
very upfront. We're not hiding anything. We're very candid. Everything is, like, for example, that first Athena Kickstarter. We were right upfront with everybody during the campaign. We did over 30 updates on the Kickstarter, which is probably uncommon for most Kickstarter campaigns. But we let everybody know every single step of the business, every step of the process, what happened, what we dropped the ball on. We're never going to try and sugarcoat things. If something goes wrong, we're going to be honest about it and straightforward. We're not going to try to, you know, talk marketing speak or anything like that to try to hide it. Because I think that's the most important thing in a business is being able to have trust in the company and trust in the people that
Yeah.
are running the company.
Yeah, that's it. And I think up till now in resin printing, like and again, I've built a channel on it. I've been bullshit so much by so many marketing teams, and I'm not going to crap on them because it's not the individual marketing person's fault. These are big companies. You've got tech guys wanting to go for the tech, and then you've got the marketing people who probably don't fully understand it, trying to communicate that out, and then you've got a language barrier. But I think a good way to end is Kicknick RV98, who's paid me again. Thank you so much for all the support. It's really appreciated. Has said, thanks Nico for the excellent transparency, and that is where you've got me. Now I'll still do a review and I'll be objective and say this printer's right for these people and wrong for these people, because I think even you've said to me this is not for everyone. Like, there are budget options out there, but at the same time, your transparency is why I personally, not objectively, hope that Concepts 3D succeeds more than so many others because of that transparency and openness, because that's what we want from a company. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think I'm so grateful that you've chosen my channel to come on to share that with the world, and thank you so much, Nico, and I'm seeing echoes of thank yous going all through the chat now, because and loads of hearts coming up, and it's lovely. You and this brand in resin printing are at the very least the biggest fucking breath of fresh air I have taken in years. So thank you. Someone then finished with blame Canada. I don't know what that means, but
The park reference.
yeah. Oh, that'll be what it is. Thank you ever so much, Nico.
Yeah,
thank you
for the opportunity, Ross. I really appreciate all that you've done for us. Hot tuna. I'm going to add that to the roadmap for the animation. And yeah, the reviews are coming out. Full reviews on the production units. Probably sometime in May. we're going to start getting units out to people in like late April for review. So you'll see a lot more finalized printers, the final version in the next couple months here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting a final one and giving my thing. And I'll probably, I'll be honest on that as well and say, like, go and watch the live stream now we've had it, and see the reasons behind this, because that'll show you what this is all about. And I'll be straight. There is a slight bias here for me. So, but I can't sell it. So that's not what I'm here to do. But I can't help but share my love and passion for you and your brand and what you aim to do. So thank you so much, Nico. Thank you for coming on the channel. I'm going to end here. I'm going to say thanks so much to everyone in this chat. Not a single person that I saw was a dick today, which is great. We're going in the right direction. Hopefully all the dicks have now left and are no longer watching me. You guys are wonderful. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. Again, if you like what Nico's had to say and you want to back this company, this project, unfortunately you can't get a white one, you can't get a black one. You don't want a white one. I want a black one with an orange lid. But if you want to back that, there's a link in the description. There's a link in the live chat. Please click it, because he's sold a load of them. A visual uptake since my video went live, significantly more than the 6 I got affiliate credit for. And that is how I run the channel. No offense, guys, but YouTube ads do not pay the bills. So I'm just praying that affiliate payments gone there. But yeah, seriously, guys, please, if you like the look of this and you want to support it, then there's links in the description. Grab yourself an Athena II pre-order and look forward to it, which could be, and I'm going to stress, could be the last printer you ever need to buy. I think that's a good way of putting it, if it stays upgradable. Yep. So, all right. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end it there. Until next time, which is probably going to be my Cobra S1 review next week. Until next time, thanks again.